Welcome, here is Hans from Project Lights Out, and today the broadcast will be a very special one because the first time ever we have a pilot here. And okay, I will give the word to Sylvain Henry, who made the contact.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I just want to make sure, does everybody hear me?
Yeah, I'm
okay. Okay, great. You can, by the way, you can use the texting at the bottom here. My name is Sylvain Henry. As you know, I'm a friend of Hans, and one of the main issues that we're exploring into, trying to discover the truth about, is the subject of chemtrails, aerosol, stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, and is a very scientific, fact-based one, not a feeling-based one. And as a result of posting some videos on YouTube, or praying for pilots to come out and talk with us and talk with me, finally one did show up, John, who will be speaking in a minute. And I met with John on 2 occasions here in Ottawa. We had some interesting discussions, and we were discussing each other's evidence. And I want to assure you that this man is a pilot for a major airline, and he showed me his credentials. And so for those of you who trust me that this is a real pilot. Now, the conversation we had together was very friendly. And we focused on the facts, and I would like to discuss, to continue this discussion, but with the rest of us, and to see if we can try to convince each other of what we believe to be true. So, before we begin, the recommended procedure for this interview, which this is a live interview, by the way. Many of you are listening to this live from different parts of the world. The recommended procedure is that you add us both, the 3 of us, in your Skype, if you want to use Skype to contact us. My Skype is sylvain.henry, as many of you know. And Hans' Skype, you know, is PLC Cancun, one word. And Blue Sky White Line is John's Skype ID. Now, you will, the person who will be inviting you, the first person is PLC Cancun. Please post your question in his Skype text box, and these questions will be reviewed by the pilot, and he'll try to answer as many as he can afford the time to, and that he wants to. They won't be in a specific order. He'll do it in whichever way he wants to. One reminder before we begin is that we have to keep this as a very civil conversation. We have to respect both sides if we are to get anywhere. And so, without further ado, I want to pass the microphone on to Blue Sky White Lines, or John. Go ahead, John.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for organizing this all. So I'd just like to start off with just a brief introduction of why I'm here, what I'm doing. So to start, I'm here as a gesture of goodwill. I'm here to stand against disinformation and try and shed a bit of light onto a topic that seems to have so much controversy. I'm here to spread a voice of reason based on facts. I hold no beliefs. I base my position on a rational understanding of the real world. My points are based on demonstrable facts. If you can show me something I believe without evidence, guess what? I will flat out stop believing it at that point. I will do my best to find evidence, and if I can't find the evidence, I'm happy with a position of not knowing rather than holding a belief or premise that might in fact be wrong. I asked listeners today if they want a better world for the next generation, that they would do best to do the same and view things in the same manner. I view this conspiracy, if not addressed, will one day result in a lunatic taking it upon themselves to possibly shoot down an airliner, certainly resulting in hundreds of deaths. There's already good evidence and documentation of people suggesting just such a thing. One just has to look back to the recent past with Timothy McVeigh, who murdered 168 people based on a conspiracy, or the children dying from measles, mumps, and other curable diseases that have been eradicated in most parts of the world, yet making a comeback because a lunatic actress, and people take advice from her rather than their own doctors. I am a professional airline pilot. I was also employed as a teacher where I taught meteorology and aerodynamics and various other related topics, so I do have a broad understanding of this topic. I'll do my best to answer everybody's questions. If I don't get a chance today, I will do my best to answer them on Sylvain's website, which he can address later. There is a chance I might not be able to answer every question today, but I will do my best to find that information for you or link you to the right place. I believe there's a rational way to determine reality from fiction. When facts converge, when a hypothesis is refined, it's indicative of it being based in reality. When ideas diverge to include more fanciful things and wild assertions of a global conspiracy requiring millions of people in silence, not to mention planes, airports, aircraft manufacturers, ground personnel, the cooperation of governments that are sometimes at war. The time to believe something, I think, is when there's reasonable evidence to do so, and not before. What I find time and time again on chemtrail conspiracy websites, are pictures of aircraft that have been thoroughly debunked and that's still passed off as evidence for their cause. Documents taken out of context. And what really sickens me, and this is why I'm really here, is that a lot of these sites often invoke fear and panic. They prey on the misinformed and the uneducated in some such situations, selling potions and organized cloudbusters and cure-all potions, and then ask for donations. I believe these people are in fact charlatans taking advantage of a misinformed public, and that is really the entire reason I'm here. And that's all for me to start.
Hi, Hans.
Great to see you again. Okay, so I will give you all of you the word because you're the specialist. I'm trying to bring you all together and help the people to know about what it is, and let's see if we find some solutions here. So, good luck.
I'd like to ask John a question that a lot of people are asking me about the chemtrail lines. The first question is, how come we have an on and off pattern, or like a dotted pattern of white trails behind some jets?
Sure. Okay. This is something that we actually discussed once before. Now, what a lot of people fail to realize is the atmosphere is a dynamic place. It's moving. There's different winds at different altitudes, different air masses that are interacting all the time. Just like, I find this is the best analogy, just like you have wind passing over a lake, the lake will then start to form waves. The same is true between two bodies of air that interact with each other. When you have a faster air motion of one air mass over the other, it'll actually create a wave-like pattern. And you can see this often on the underside of clouds from the ground, and on top of the clouds it's much more apparent. You can see the waves and the undulations of these clouds. When there isn't clouds present, those waves still exist. And what you're seeing with this on and off pattern is the aircraft actually passing through these large waves. And as it essentially goes through the middle of these waves, it doesn't ride over the tops of them. And in this case, you'll go from an area of high moisture to an area of low moisture. In the area of high moisture, you'll get that saturation point, and you'll get the exhaust essentially condensing out the back of the aircraft. And as you get closer and closer to the warm front or away from it, it'll either disappear entirely or it'll start to form a consistent contrail. Does that answer it?
Yes. Thank you for that. A second question that's very popular is that though airplanes fly everywhere above all the countries of the world, including the North and South Poles, How come is it that we don't see the white lines over certain countries such as China? Go ahead, please.
Okay, this is a good one. I will link it to a site later on that has a very good demonstration of it. One of the major reasons over China, it's a communist country. They're very suspicious about a lot of people. Most airlines don't fly over China simply because they can't get permission to fly over China. It's more of a hassle to cross over China just because you need certain requirements and all the rest of it, and then you're never actually guaranteed your altitude. So for fuel planning purposes, most airlines will avoid it altogether and go around it. The other thing too is if you are going to be crossing China, they usually set you at a much lower altitude. That way you can't be doing any malicious spying or what have you. So there's a couple of reasons for that. The other part is the majority of the population of China is along its coasts. Since it's along its coast, there's a coast, and most of the people are going from North America to Asia anyway. There's really no need to cross right over the middle. You will find some contrails, but again, it's not as densely populated in the center part of Asia. Well, not in a point that requires air traffic. It's a much more impoverished area versus the coast where the major cities are and the industry is. I think that should do it.
Yep, thank you very much for that. Another typical question is, and this one is, there's a lot of evidence to support it. As a matter of fact, some of that evidence has come to me in the form of blood tests analysis that people have sent to me via email. Now the question is, the high concentration of aluminum oxides in rainwater of certain countries on top of snow and inside people's bodies. I wonder if you care to comment about your theory behind that.
That's something we've discussed as well once before. I can assure you that there is no aluminum being spread inside of or being injected into aircraft fuel or being dispersed by aircraft. My best guess, and I've seen a couple of situations or a couple of articles suggesting the exact same thing, is that in fact it's coming from coal generation or coal plants. It's quite well documented that in the process of burning coal, which is essentially organic material mixed with minerals, which the Earth's crust being I think 8% aluminum anyway, this shovels into a hot flame. Part of this is released as fly ash, the ash that is essentially atomized and everything, and then comes out as almost as a vapor, cools in the atmosphere, and gets carried thousands of miles away. These are micro small particles, which is exactly what you're finding in the soil samples and stuff like that. What the other big reason I believe this is the more likely cause of the aluminum in the environment is because it's well documented. Fly ash is, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think there's like 70 tons of it that's released in the United States, and they have fairly stringent requirements for environmental stuff. That's still a lot of aluminum that's being thrown up into the atmosphere. I'm willing to bet if you see where these samples are coming from, they're probably fairly close or within a reasonable distance of a coal power station. The other thing is the Chinese are building and burning coal like crazy. I think it's like 3 trillion tons a year they're at now. They don't have the environmental policies that the Western world has at this time. So I'm willing to bet they are pumping tons and tons of this small particulate aluminum and other minerals that are found in the environment or in the soils right into the atmosphere. And I'm sure if people were to do a bit of research, they would come to the exact same conclusions that I have for that, because I can assure you it's not being mixed in our fuel. I read there's one user stream, 528862. It's Project Cloverleaf, well done explanation. I did go back last night and tried to answer some of that stuff. I'm trying to remember the article right now. I didn't find it really explained any. I've seen a couple of documentation I tried to explain this on one of the websites, or on Sylvain's website last night. There's no doubt that researchers are looking into high atmosphere pollution and trying to determine ways to stem global warming. When there's almost a unanimous consensus among environmental scientists, I think it's right now 97% of published environmental scientists in the United States believe that global warming is an actual fact. When you have an overwhelming majority of scientists in that field agreeing with each other, there's definitely going to be people that are investing money into researching potential ways of offsetting it, and the atmosphere would be a fantastic way of slowing global warming. I have no doubt of this, and I have no doubt that NASA is doing research on this, that there's government agencies, because there's huge money to be made in this if in fact global warming is in fact what it is, but there's going to be a huge cost. I know for a fact there is no such thing as a global spraying campaign going on right now. I have no doubt that there are research planes that are doing high level experiments and all sorts of research in that regards. I think that kind of covers the cloverleaf one. There's another question. Why would a Secretary of Police chief tell me to put tinfoil on my windows? I don't know if that's a joke question. I imagine this person was probably pulling your leg, just as some conspiracy theorists are told, or I think in fact at one point were wearing tinfoil hats to prevent their minds being read. I think that was probably just a way of making fun of you. I think. Here we got another question. Chemtrails are nearly daily occurrences in Nebraska, USA. Sure. Nebraska is central United States. The grand majority of the population in North America is either on the East Coast or the West Coast. The majority of traffic that comes across that country is going to go over some parts of Nebraska. It's just inevitable. Your best bet is to look at the air routes. You have thousands and thousands of aircraft that are flying on a daily across the United States. It's inevitable that with the high level traffic, you're going to get condensation trails almost daily, especially in Nebraska. Okay, what type of pilot I am? For Michael Amiralt. I fly airline jets at this point. I do international flying. I've worked everything from flying up north, air ambulance, fire patrol. I've worked as an instructor, as I mentioned before. I have also worked for regional airlines. There's an airport in continental North America that I haven't flown to at this point. I've been everything, small gravel strips up to the major international airports: Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, New York. I've seen essentially the whole spectrum in this country.
Now the question comes, some people, there's a debate about where the aluminum oxide comes from, but there's no debate that it's present inside water, inside people, because as many people know who are in the medical field, in the United States in particular, but also in Ontario, here in Canada, the fastest growing disease is a mental disease, mental health condition, Alzheimer's. And one of the things that accelerates the onset of Alzheimer's is the presence of aluminum inside the body. But the question is this: is it coming from the sky? A lot of people say yes, because you can find it in high concentrations on snow and artificial ponds. Artificial ponds have a membrane that separates the earth from from the water. So there are some deposits in artificial ponds and such. The question is, there's debate about where the source is. Some people say it's from artillery, because artillery in China, they use artillery to fire things like silver iodide, silver iodide, yeah, inside the air for cloud seeding to make the rain. As many people know that during the the Summer Olympics in China, there were clear blue skies. It never rained 1 second because the Chinese control the weather, and that is a known fact. Now, artillery is one way. Rocket fire is another way. Some scientists advocate that it could be used as geoengineering experiments using rockets or missiles to shoot very, very high up in the air. And there's some scientific evidence to show that that indeed does take place. To what extent, I don't know. So there's artillery, there's rockets. One way that is publicly, announced, in the UK, they wanted to conduct an experiment using giant hot air balloons the size of 2 football fields. And these hot air balloons, not hot air balloons, but lighter than air balloons, would have a hose that would go down into a ship, which would supply some aerosols to be sprayed. Now, this is an experiment that was proposed in the UK. There's a lot of literature on this, and they proposed doing that because it is the cheapest way for spreading aluminum oxides, because that's what they intended to use over large distances, such as regions or countries. As a matter of fact, Dr. David Keith in University of Calgary was one of the people who, he's an advocate, by the way, of aerosol geoengineering using aluminum oxides, and he suggested that would be a less expensive medium for distributing aerosol of this kind. So, and some people say it's military jets, some people say it's pilotless jets, and some people say it's commercial airlines. Now, I don't know which way it is myself personally, and I'm assuming it's perhaps one of these ways. That's what I think, but I don't have all the evidence yet. But those people who do say that it's military aviation, they say that there's, and I've seen this evidence, that military jets have tested the use of aluminum oxides to extend the length of the journey using the same fuel. Now, before I ask my question, I just want to say one thing. Other people think it's commercial aircraft. Some people think it's regular commercial aircraft with passengers. Some people think it's specialized planes that would spray this. But my question to you, since you're a pilot and not a fire of artillery and missiles, and a pilot of military planes, if it were on a jet, would you happen to know all the space within the jets that could possibly hold canisters for this kind of experimentation, or are there spaces in the plane, in the cargo holds, that you would not be aware of? That's my question.
Okay, you covered so many points. If you can just, if you're able to pause next time, just so I can kind of answer them as we go, otherwise it gets confusing. I think I've got all of them here. So the aluminum with Alzheimer's, everybody knows the population is getting older. We live longer than we did 50 years ago. We live much longer than we did 200 years ago. With age, sure, you're going to have all sorts of ailments. Arthritis is on the rise too, but we don't associate that with anything other than getting old. If there's a connection with aluminum, I've actually gone, because I've done a lot of research on aluminum oxide and everything. I've seen the reports, and there was I think in the early 90s a study that suggested that there may be a correlation between aluminum monoxide and Alzheimer's. But then subsequent studies afterwards, and all of them afterwards, suggested that there really is no real connection. They haven't been able to find the link, if there is any, as they found aluminum oxide in people that didn't actually have Alzheimer's. So I have no doubt that any foreign body or foreign substance in your body that's not supposed to be there is probably doing its harm. I'm not contesting that. I think there's still a lot of research to go before we can associate aluminum oxide with Alzheimer's in general, because we had that long before we had like dementia was around long before we had commercial jet and airliners. So since we had it before, there was the potential of this aluminum oxide being a cause from jet airliners, supposedly. One can almost assume that maybe there isn't a direct correlation with that. The next point you made was artillery. I'm not sure how many people have actually heard an artillery shell being shot. They are deafening. You can hear those for 20, 30 miles away. You couldn't hide an artillery program anywhere in North America without somebody complaining. People complain about windmills that are creating too much noise. I couldn't imagine having an artillery round going off every couple of minutes for seeding clouds. It's just not happening. Not in North America. If the Chinese are doing with it, I have no idea. I can't attest to what the Chinese are doing with their artillery shells. Putting silver iodide in the atmosphere has been an effective way of producing clouds. Cloud seeding is I know I have friends that do cloud seeding in smaller aircraft and stuff outside of Calgary. It saves millions and millions of dollars in hail damage in Calgary alone, just by taking small planes. And these planes are like, we're not talking airline jets. We're talking twin turboprop aircraft. And these aircraft go up to 16 to 20,000 feet, and they seed these clouds, and they're not laying straight lines. They fly a couple of circle loops and everything, trying to seed a cloud. Then they go to another spot where there's a bit of a buildup, and they try and irritate the cloud enough that it starts raining before it becomes.
Those clouds don't belong to the insurance company. Those are our clouds. Those clouds belong to everybody.
Okay, sure, they don't belong to anybody, but you're talking about a massive accumulation of water that is going to do all sorts of damage. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen some of the hail.
I'm in Alberta, just north of Calgary, and I've paid attention. I'm an auto body mechanic, and I fix hail damage on vehicles, and it's always disappointed me for years and years that they're mucking with the clouds. Those are my clouds too. Can I put an airplane up there to make it hail? That's in my best interest. It's financially interesting to me.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, if you want to go up and, I'm sure if you wanted to fund the money to create more hail, you probably have a lawsuit on your hands because you're causing people damage.
Baloney. I would get shut down so quick, and you know it. If I was up there trying to make it, I can tell you that the Pine Lake tornado was caused by hail seeding in Red Deer.
Okay, I don't know about that tornado. I can't say one way or another. I can tell you for a fact that cloud seeding does happen, and it saves millions and millions of dollars in potential damage on these cities. That if you want to claim these clouds for yourself, that's fine, or claim them for everybody. That's fine. The fact of the matter is, property damage is
they're doing it for their own financial interest. That's not right. You don't muck with my clouds for your own financial gain. That's ridiculous.
Well, okay, but if you want to take it to that step, well, all trees are everybody's. You can't cut trees down anymore. You can't build houses anymore. You can't dig minerals out of the ground and make metal anymore because they're everybody. You can't mess with everybody's.
Well, I'll agree with you there too. Come on.
No, but like, you have to draw a line, right? Like you have to be rational about things.
Right, but they don't know what they're doing.
No, you can't build a dam because
they attack the hail clouds at rate of rise. I paid close attention to this. I've listened to them on the scanner. and they do. They test rate of rise, and when the rate of rise of a cloud is dangerous, then they attack it with silver iodine. Well,
Sure.
That's fine. What's the result? Like, they don't. Sure, they might have stopped it from hailing. Listen, there's a reason it was going to hail, right? There was a reason that it had to hail. It's energy. You can't just. Energy is not destroyed or created, so you can't just start mucking with this energy. What's going to happen to that energy? What's going to replace what was going to happen with the hail? It's energy changing position. It's going to happen one way or another. So then
Sure.
You get a tornado, or you get worse, and they only protect like a city, and then what happens to the guy down the road that they're not protecting because it's not financially interesting to them?
Okay, I'll just give you a quick analogy to that. Sure, the energy is there, and it has to be dissipated. It's dissipated slowly then in a big thunderstorm. It's like slowing your car down with your brakes versus slamming it to the wall. You're dissipating the same amount of energy. You're doing it in a split second when you hit a wall, or you're doing it over a couple hundred yards with using your brakes. That's the difference with what they're doing. The same energy is being dissipated. It's just being dissipated at a different rate. To say that, like, your idea that the clouds are everybody's and they shouldn't be touched, okay, but then let's say you're in a floodplain. Do you build a dam, or is the potential gain from having a house flooded a financial gain to the insurance or to the people who build houses? Are we taking money out of their pockets if we don't let everybody's house flood every spring? No, of course. We build dikes. Like, I'm not sure whereabouts you live in the prairies, but you go to Winnipeg, they spend millions and millions of dollars diverting water, and they do it. Nobody complains.
But it usually just creates problems further downstream. I mean,
what's that?
The building of dikes and dams and that sort of thing just causes further problems upstream or downstream, one way or the other. It fixes the problem in one small location.
Yeah, it fixes the problem where there's the most damage and the most potential destruction to human life. That's where they focus.
I don't want to sound like I'm attacking.
System.
I don't really want to argue or anything. I don't want to sound like I'm attacking you or anything. You know, like
No, I don't. I think we're completely off topic here. I think, like, I'm not going to deny cloud seeding happens. The reason they do it is because the insurance companies have money to save by doing it. It doesn't cost much for the cloud seeding they're doing. They're doing it in small areas, just where it's likely to attack or where they're likely to get thunderstorms over major cities. I'd like to move on to some of the other ones because Sylvain made a lot of points and he did ask a question at the end of them. So I'd like to move on to the next one unless you had a last comment there.
Well, it kind of leads into this, though. If it's for financial gain, what about struggling airlines and somebody introducing fuel reduction rate? Like, you know, we'll give you fuel for half the cost for a struggling airline.
Sure.
If you use our fuel.
Okay. Well, the first
and that fuel could have the additive in it.
Sure. The problem with that is silver iodide doesn't really mix well with water. It's usually burnt on the back of these cloud seeding machines. The other problem is airlines don't fly at 16 to 20,000 feet. That's bumpy as hell, and that's the reason that they're doing it. That's in the thunderstorm layer. Airliners fly well above, like into the stratosphere for the most part. There is no weather really there. There's winds, but there really is there's not a substantial amount of water. And water is what drives the weather below it. So cloud seeding at 37,000 feet is going to do nothing. And you couldn't organize a cloud seeding operation from that altitude because the drift down is so slow on this stuff. You might be, if you were to do cloud seeding over Calgary, it might, like with an airline jet, it might not have an effect to the altitude that you would need it to until it got over Newfoundland somewhere. Like it doesn't make any sense to even try at such a thing. Yeah, absolutely, airlines are struggling. It's hard to make a dollar these days with gas prices.
Yeah, so it would be.
But the idea that people would get into a
for big
like that
companies
doesn't
like
make sense.
Monsanto or Maurice Strong and his Al Gore group and whatnot, it would be possible for them to provide the fuel additive for the airlines, and if they use it, then they get a cut rate on their fuel costs. And then the airlines would unknowingly be doing the dirty work.
But the problem is it's still at the wrong altitudes. It's just at the wrong altitudes. You wouldn't cloud seed from 37,000 feet, 40,000 feet. It wouldn't make any sense.
Well, why not barium and aluminum? Like it's for this global warming stuff, or Agenda 21 possibly. I don't know one way or the other.
This is the problem. Like there's no consensus as to what this conspiracy is all about. Is it for crops? Is it for global warming? Or like what is it? Like there's no consensus. There's just wild allegations with no real direction.
Well, true that. That's why we're here.
Well, yeah, but like since there's real nobody really has any idea if it's for global warming, it's from human population, mind control. I've heard all sorts of wild allegations, but there's no consensus. And the reason there's no consensus is because there's really no program going on. Nobody's found these planes that or like, and if it was mixed into the fuel, here's a quick way to find it. You go to any major airport. You go to Atlanta. They have, I think, 1,000 aircraft movements every single day. Planes are burning tons and tons and tons of gas in a really confined area. If it is mixed with the fuel, you go there, you take an air sample.
We should get our hands on some airline fuel. Straight, right from truck to plane, we should get our hands on some airline fuel. That's a pretty good idea.
You just go to the fixed base operators. You can go to an airport and get jet fuel if you want. You can't buy it from.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
You'd be disappointed if you tapped it, because it is just diesel. You can stick it in your truck afterwards.
Well, yeah, but I remember the United States putting toxic stuff in our fuel and shipping it over the border into Canada. We were burning it. I forget what it was. They were putting in the fuel, but they were disposing it. It's a way of disposing toxic waste. When you can't get rid of it, you can just put it in some fuel and people burn it.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know about that.
I don't have any links or anything for that, but I remember the U.S. was shipping toxic fuel across the border into Canada.
All right, I don't know either way. Either way, I'd like to go back to what Sylvain was saying. Sylvain, you mentioned something about the UK had some proposals for dispersing aerosols into the high atmosphere using boats and pumping it up to a lighter than air machine and all the rest of it. Yeah, like I said before, research is going on all the time. Like, people are trying to develop ways, the most cost-effective ways of stopping this global warming thing, which, like I said before, scientists are almost in a consensus that this is definitely happening. So sure, there are people developing technologies. Like, it would make sense. You don't design a house to withstand an earthquake after the earthquake happens. You do it before. You make preparation. That's how we got to this point in society, is because we plan ahead. We prepare for the worst case scenarios. We have fire extinguishers in houses, and not because there's a fire there at the moment, because in potential you need to have that technology available to you. Like, I have no doubt that the UK has got all sorts of patents all around the world. People there's millions of dollars being spent on researching and developing stuff about global warming. So that doesn't surprise me at all. A Calgary professor says putting aluminum oxide. Sure. Again, all sorts of people are doing research. It makes sense that people are coming up with ideas and doing calculations to see what it would take to lower the Earth's temperature a fraction of a degree. I don't doubt this. What I'm saying is, just because there is an idea doesn't mean that there's an actual program.
One of the problems, one of the problems is, though, there was an old lady that swallowed a fly. And see, that's the problem. You do one thing. We've seen this over and over and over again. The problem's caused by the attempts to do one thing, and then there's 3 other things that they have to start doing because, you know, have you ever played Sim Earth? It was a computer game years ago.
Yeah, I remember it. No, I never played it though.
And they give you an Earth and it's empty, and you start to play with it, and you have to put people on it, and you have to put, and then you start to chase it, and it's nuts. That's what we're doing. We're chasing something that the Earth is so much bigger than us in the world. It doesn't. We can't realistically believe that we're going to do stuff to it. It's doing stuff to us, and we just call.
I'd like to interject at some point because John was answering the final question that I wanted to ask. Was is there space in the plane that pilots don't know about, that either canisters can be placed anywhere in the plane, and regarding the fuel as well too, but mostly about the space. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, like I am getting to that. I just hadn't managed to get to that point on my list of things. Okay, to answer that question, since you brought it right now, no, there isn't. There isn't space in those planes. It makes no sense to make a plane bigger than its actual purpose, because then you're dragging more weight for the actual aircraft and displacing more air across the sky and making it less aerodynamic. So every square inch on an airline jet is accounted for. There's no room to hide tanks. I can attest that there is nothing that gets put on an aircraft without the pilots being aware of it. We know exactly how many pallets of cargo we have down to the kilogram, how many passengers, how much water is being put in for potable water for the passengers, how much catering is being put on. We know everything because it's so critical with these new airliners that the weights be exactly right. And when there's so much liability in this world, if you take off with a plane that is 10 kilograms over its designed weight, and you have an accident, and they are able to deduce that you took off overweight, guess what? You're at fault, and you are hung out to dry. And so nobody takes these risks anymore. In the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, it was a bit more gung-ho. There was less regulations and stuff, and there was a lot of accidents, and it was associated from people taking off overweight or doing the incorrect balance. The other thing too is these planes have to be balanced perfectly, and you can't put liquid on a plane in a ballast tank just anywhere that you're going to dump during your flight, because that throws the whole center of gravity off on the aircraft. The only place you carry liquid is along the center of across the wings, where the fuel tanks are and everything else, because it burns at a rate where it doesn't displace the center of gravity on that aircraft. So no, there's not a place you could hide a tank of any substantial size. I read an article late last night, and it was talking about a mechanic, how he discovered that there was this tank, and then he followed the lines. It was so absurd, and I broke it down into as many points as I could of how many things he got entirely wrong. The mechanic claimed he was fixing toilets, and then all of a sudden he was repairing engine sensors. It didn't make any sense. You don't. In the airline industry, maintenance is really important, that it's done properly. They do everything in pairs when they're working on engines. Everything is done and then double checked. All the paperwork is done and completed before they ever leave the aircraft. That plane doesn't move until everything is signed and the captain says, yeah, it's been done, signs it off, ever. So the article was complete bunk. So there is no hidden tanks in an airline jet. So the only place you could potentially have any chemical would be within the fuel, if you were to try and do such a program. And I have looked at, you mentioned this aluminum extenders. I looked high and low. I found a couple of examples, and one was a university in the United States last year that had been able to suspend nanoparticles of aluminum and burn them, and it made a faster flashpoint. You don't need that in a jet. The jets work fine. The problem with that is they had to
aggravate the stuff and then burn it almost immediately because they couldn't keep it suspended long enough in the thing. And the thing is, you need perfectly pure aluminum. You can't use aluminum oxide to burn it as an extender because it's already combusted. There's no potential energy gain from having aluminum oxide mixed in your fuel. And to keep stable aluminum without it oxidizing is virtually impossible except in lab situations. The only other situation I found was used in solid rocket fuels, where you can keep solid aluminum, pure aluminum, hasn't oxidized, and they use that, sure, because it stabilized the rate at which it burned. And it was anything that oxidizes is essentially creating energy and heat and stuff like that, and adds to its potential energy. So those are the only things I could possibly find, and I did tons of research trying to find these fuel extenders. And I had a conversation with Sylvain before, because during the Cold War and everything, there was a huge game. The United States was set on having long-range bombers that could cover the world, and they tried everything with fuels, absolutely everything. And I'm sure you can find thousands of different patents on different types of fuels, because their goal was to be able to have a bomber over Russia anytime they wanted, and the technology wasn't there. Now it is. It's readily available. So it's like you can produce an airline that can fly one end of the world to the other without difficulty. But that's only in the recent decade that you've actually had that technology available to you. So does that answer the question there, Sylvain?
I think that does. Thanks. All of a sudden, we have a flood of questions, and I see online, for some reason, we have some native citizens of North America from both Canada and United States, and I was wondering if there was a native perspective of this issue, and if they wanted to ask any questions of you. Is there anybody who's interested?
I am Sylvain. This is Kim Moore in Redding, California. I live close to Mount Shasta.
Hello.
Hi.
Go ahead, Kim. Thanks a lot.
I live under a lot of the chemtrails, and I've been looking at this information for over 14 years, and I've seen the test results for the soil and the water, and the impact that the barium and the other chemicals in this cloud seeding and chemtrails, what they contain. And it's messing up our people, it's messing up our water, it's messing up our fish. We say that you can always tell the health of our tribe by the health of our fish and our water. So we have serious issues here, and I would just like to know from a pilot's perspective, and I'm sure that you experience a blackout on discussions such as this, what do you think is the one thing that we as a people can do to put a stop to these programs? And I don't want to be so uneducated as to say, well, that looks scary, squash it. That's not the point. The point is these programs have been being used for over 40, 50 years, and things are getting worse, not better. So it's alarming. To me, it seems if they haven't been able to stop storms like Hurricane Sandy, then what's the justification for using this? Rain?
Agreed. I totally agree with you. It's same as they stopped the hail in Red Deer in Alberta, but then it caused a tornado in Pine Lake. So these programs are like the old lady that swallowed the fly.
How can we have an impact? How can we bring solutions? I've been singing at the choir for 14 years. I want to have an impact. It doesn't have to come from me personally. I mean, I just want to see this change. What do pilots think people could do that would bring this to a halt?
Okay, I'll do my best to try and answer this. As much as people want to believe that the increase in aluminum and everything is coming from airlines, it flat out isn't. It's not coming from military jets. It's not coming from a secret organization. I imagine
I imagine, like I said before, that it's probably coming from the burning of coal, because there's a known connection between fly ash that's burnt from coal and aluminum oxide and everything in the environment as a result. Nobody's been able to this point to ever make any connection from an airline jet to an emission of aluminum oxide. Nobody's found that one piece of evidence, and the reason nobody's found it in the 14 years that you've been researching it, and like the number of years that everybody else has, is because it's not there. There really is no connection between aluminum oxide in the environment and jet fuel.
So let's say they're just contrails then. Let's forget that they're even chemtrails of any kind, and let's just say they're contrails. They turn the sky completely white. I've seen it. You get a bunch of airplanes fly over. The sky turns completely white, and our nice blue sky goes away. Don't you think there's an issue here that needs to be addressed, even if they're just plain old fuel? Then I still believe there's something that has to be looked at here.
Absolutely, I have no doubt that planes cloud cover, because like I've tried, like I did send Sylvain a document that I posted where I addressed some of these issues and everything. The burning of fossil fuels does produce moisture. This is a scientific fact. It's not open to discussion. It produces water. When you burn a ton of jet fuel, you produce 1.24 tons minimum of water. That water gets dumped into the atmosphere. A cloud is essentially water moisture. There really is no difference, and the reason they look like essentially clouds, but long straight ones, is because that's exactly what they are. Cloud cover does have an effect, and during the September 11th attacks was the first time, because researchers have been noticing, and like scientists and climate scientists have been aware of contrails since the 40s when they first started appearing. They had their first opportunity when they shut down all the skies. They got rid of all the airline traffic. They had their first opportunity to test and see what the effect of the contrails was on the environment. And what they determined was there really was almost there was a negligible change in the global temperature. During the day, it was slightly warmer because there was less radiation being blocked into space, but at night, more radiation was being lost to space because there wasn't that blanketing effect of these man-made clouds, essentially. And that is exactly what they are. They are man-made clouds from water being added into the atmosphere. Now, you say that you see these contrails and then all of a sudden the sky is white. This is what frustrates me a lot is people don't understand that warm front was coming anyway. It wasn't not going to come. It was coming anyway. When you see contrails and then they lead off into the distance and you see that white haze coming towards you, that cloud was there before. Whether the plane was flying or not is regardless. That warm front is approaching you, and what you see as the planes get closer, and like those contrails get closer and closer to that warm front edge, is that the moisture level in that air is higher. As a result, it produces much more cloud or condensation trails behind the aircraft. And like you can't expect to have a blue sky all the time, because it just doesn't exist. If you want blue sky all the time, move to a desert. Like there really is no option. Like clouds happen, weather happens. Sure, we have white lines in the sky. Like we can get rid of them. And I respond to one person that says, well, can we bring it back to the way it was before we had white condensation trails in the sky? Sure, we can. All the planes would then have to fly at 18,000 feet, 20,000 feet. They would burn 3 or 4 times more fuel in the process, dumping tons more CO2 and actual pollutants into the atmosphere. And the planes wouldn't be able to go as far. You would then spend 3 or 4 or 5 times more to go from A to B in a jet. It would make no sense. The reason we have more contrails now is it's because the increase of airline traffic for one. Planes fly much higher than they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. All these new jets are flying right up into the stratosphere where the weather is a bit smooth, and the air is thinner, and the aircraft perform much better and much more efficient.
It's that darn pro sports. You ever think about that? How many airplanes fly as a result of pro sports every day?
Can I interject?
Sorry, I missed that last comment. Those pro sports, I missed what you said. It cut out.
Oh, pro sports, you know, like sports. Every time a football or a hockey team plays, one team's got to fly.
Hans,
Sure.
can
Yeah.
I say
fine.
something, John?
Yeah, please go ahead.
As a resident in Northern California in Redding, and somebody who's low income, I don't burn fossil fuels in my home. I don't burn wood. I don't burn any kind of fire. I don't turn on my central air and heating, and I don't use propane heat. And a year and a half ago, because of some health conditions that I was having, I was recluse in my home. I went out at one point to remove all the leaves that had fallen off of my tree and to get them pushed down below the deck. The trees come up through the deck.
Sure.
And in the process of doing that, I got really sick that night. The next day, I had a swollen tonsils and I started losing my voice. And within a couple more days, I had a huge abscess on the left side of my face, and I felt that there was a good chance that I had been exposed to whatever was sprayed on those leaves. I went to my medical clinic, and I actually went toe-to-toe and argued with them to have a chemicals test run on me, and I tested positive. Now, if I had been in my home recluse, maybe only outside, or maybe leaving the interior of my home approximately one day a month, and it had been that way for over a month, how could I have picked that up from coal? The chemicals that I tested positive for are some of the same chemicals that are in these chemtrails, and I watched them spray them. I've filmed the difference between Comtrails and chemtrails over my own home, living so close to Lake Shasta. How do you refute that? I'm somebody who eats natural foods. I don't eat processed foods, and most of what I eat is what I grow. Those weren't chemicals that were in my system before, and once I detoxed and cleansed and got rid of them, I didn't have them again. The only exposure I could relate it to was the immense amount of material that I moved, the leaves that had been exposed to what comes from the sky. And then the test results that come out of Lake Shasta, I just don't see how it can be denied that there's a connection between what's being sprayed from these planes and these increased level of toxins in our results.
Okay, I'll do my best to try and explain that again. You've asserted that aluminum is coming from planes. You actually don't have any evidence that there's aluminum mixed in the fuel or that they're spraying, and then you make the conclusion that because you had a blood test and it showed signs of aluminum that it was coming from the planes. Like I said before, my best guess is that, and if you do a bit of research, I think you'll come to the same conclusion that burning coal is your most likely cause of any aluminum, like higher than normal aluminum rates in the environment. I then asked how many people on your street came up with the same condition, because I'm sure many people move their leaves in your neighborhood. Like if there was spraying going on, it would make no sense to do it at 40,000 feet. And the reason I'll try and explain this, just because you have, let's say, an abundance of condensation trails above your house, the winds are coming from the west, typically in your latitude. They're moving anywhere between 100 to 200 miles per hour at 40,000 feet. That condensation trail, and people say they persist for 8 or 9 hours, it's because they're almost stationary. They're not falling. They will. There are certain situations I'll get into later where they do descend a little bit into lower air and stuff like that. But if somebody was to spray something, you wouldn't do it at that altitude. Like, how ineffective would that be? like spraying over California may affect somewhere over Washington, D.C. Like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So unless you can make a connection, like if everybody on your street was getting sick, I would say that there's probably something in your environment that you should look into. You claim that there's higher than normal levels of aluminum in the environment. What I find absolutely confusing to me is how little people register that aluminum aluminum oxide is a normal part of the soil. It's like 8% of our soil all the time. It's always there. I can walk out front. I can pick up a handful of soil, and it's going to have around 8% aluminum oxide. That's just a fact of the crust of this planet. Like that's the environment we live on. It's an inert substance for the most part. It's organically reacted because it's already bonded to an oxygen molecule. So, like these things, it's not even considered a toxic substance because it really doesn't react with anything because it's already reacted. It's like Teflon. It doesn't react with anything. Like it's an inert substance. I don't understand. You asserted that aluminum is coming from these condensation trails, but you haven't made the connection, and that's a huge leap you have to make from an organization spraying at 40,000 feet to affecting your backyard and the leaves.
I'd love to address this. I don't know if is my audio coming through at all?
Yes, Russ. I think you want to address the issue. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for your input, Mr. Blue Sky. Want to address a couple things that Kim just mentioned. Is first of all, in soils, it's not directly free aluminum that's in the soils. It's bauxite, and the aluminum is actually bound up in the soils. And in that state, it's not reactive, which is why we have aluminum manufacturing. This is why we have to smelt the aluminum and use electrolysis to draw out the aluminum. The other thing that's really important to realize, so my point there is that free aluminum is going to be reactive. Aluminum, especially the smaller the particle aluminum, is going to cause respiratory issues. It suppresses the immune system. And Dr. Russell Blaylock wrote an awesome article about the inflammatory causes of nanoparticle aluminum. The smaller the particle, the more surface area it has to react in the body and causes inflammation. Furthermore, we know that particle size of particles in the air is directly related to the lifespan of the people who are breathing them. This is just plain old-fashioned science. The other thing Kim mentioned is she mentioned about getting sick, correlated it with these spray events. A couple things I'd like to mention here is first of all, when you have an environmental condition, not everybody gets sick at the same rate. People produce a substance in their bodies called glutathione. And glutathione is one of the substances, or the primary substance, that helps the body to get rid of toxins and metals, especially things like mercury, but other metals as well. Now, anybody who's been involved in environmental illness will tell you that when there is a contamination in the air, everybody gets sick at a different rate. Some people are going to be extremely sensitive. Just give me a couple minutes. Let me finish what I'm saying. This is real important. People are going to get sick at a different rate, and so to make the argument that, well, why isn't everybody on the road sick? Why isn't everybody under the trail sick? Just doesn't hold water. The other thing that I'd like to say personally is I want to share with everyone who's listening to this group my personal experiences with this, because this joins right in with the discussion that we're having. I lived in 2005. I lived in Jamestown, New York, which is a beautiful, very lush area east of Lake Erie. It's a very beautiful, lush area because we get a lot of lake effect snow from Lake Erie. Now, I have been a sky watcher all my life. As a child, I used to collect pictures of jets. Instead of eating lunch, I would take my lunch money and go to the library in Maryland where I lived, and I would actually make pictures out of books of jets. That was my favorite thing in the whole world, and I collected thousands of pictures over the years. And I used to watch the sky continuously. And I'm going to just give me a couple minutes to give my whole piece here, and then feel free to respond. But I want to lay out my background. So I know I'm coming in late to this discussion, and my apologies, because I had to I've been trying to hook up with Dane Wigington for almost a week now, and he called right as you had introduced me. So forgive my my dropping off the line here, but I had to take his call. My history in this, I've watched the sky all my life. I've flown everywhere. I've driven everywhere, probably in at least half of the states, the United States, from every four corners. I've watched the sky in all my picture collecting, and all of my observations of the sky throughout my life until 2005. I have never, not once, not ever seen a trail emitted from a jet engine. Today, 49 out of 50 jets that I see in the sky are emitting both persistent and non-persistent trails. Now, here's the background I want to share, and then feel free to respond, please. But I lived in Jamestown, New York in 2005. I worked from home. I had a big window that had a view of the whole town in the sky. I was up on the hill, and it was a beautiful view. In late 2005, all of a sudden, there are no major airports around Jamestown, New York for 90 miles. The closest major airport might be Erie, Pennsylvania, which really isn't that big, or there is one in Buffalo, which is 90 miles away. So you'd never see airplanes in the sky. You never see them. They're flying too high to see. However, and you would never see this. I mean, I've lived there. So in 2005, all of a sudden, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, every afternoon, jets, large jets, 747s, 737s, DC-9s, all jets that we know have been converted to tankers by the military, came and started crisscrossing the sky. This happened at 3 p.m. every afternoon, and they had trails. And 30 minutes, plus or minus 10 minutes, after they begin spraying, the air would become so harsh, I would be able to smell and taste the metal in the air. My sinuses would burn, and just like Dr. Russell Blaylock wrote in his article about geoengineering and chemtrails, where aluminum particles are extremely inflammatory, I had a horrible inflammatory reaction to it, to the point where my employees, I had 3 employees at the time, I would have to cancel my meetings and say, I can't meet anymore, I can't think, my mind is spinning, the taste in the air is so horrible, I feel like I'm going to throw up. It was absolutely horrible. Now, 2 things I want to address about this, I want to fill in a few holes because I know these are going to come up, is how fast do those particles descend? Well, if you're on the moon, we have video of this, and you drop a feather and a hammer, they hit the ground at the same time because the gravitational acceleration is a constant. Now, the only thing that's resisting the fall of those particles to the ground is air resistance. And if you're dealing with nanoparticles, a lot of people say, oh, well, then they don't reach the ground for weeks. No, I can smell and taste them. There are certain people, and I'm one of them, that has a that has more taste buds than other people do. And so there's a certain small percentage of the population, and I'm in contact with many of them on my groups, who can smell and who can taste the chemtrails. To me, 30 minutes plus or minus 10 minutes after they spray at low altitudes, I can taste them, I can smell them, I have an horrible inflammatory reaction, and it's not like something I'm reaching for. It is overwhelming to the point where it shuts me down and makes it difficult for me to function. That was in 2005. I have been measuring this pattern for 7 years. I have stood outside when the air was mild, very clear, and there was no flavor, watch the jet go over. I would wait. I have timed this, and because I own my own business, I have freedom to do this. 30 minutes later, I can smell and taste the plume. And I believe the reason is because those little particles descend much more quickly than most people think, because the rate of descent is resisted only by the amount of air that is displaced by the particle. Well, if the particle is dense, meaning that it has a very small cross-section, size cross-section versus its weight, it is going to fall very quickly. And this lines up with experiments we've done where we've taken iron-based laser printer toner and stood up on a ladder and dropped it, and it almost immediately it hits the ground. You can set a piece of paper and see this hit the ground, because these the ones we tested were about 3 microns, I believe. They're very, very small particles. So anyway, so these particles descend very rapidly, much more rapidly than people think, because of the density. They don't have a large cross-section to provide air resistance, and a certain portion of the population can taste and smell them. Well, these jets would come, and they would crisscross the sky. They would do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day. They would spray for 3 hours, and by the time they were done, the sky was completely covered up. I have watched this. I have taken 3 years of time-lapse and watched this activity, and because I can smell and taste them, I also can, I don't even have to go outside. I mean, very quickly I can be inside, and I can tell you when spraying is going on, because I can taste and smell them so clearly. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that while I was in Jamestown, and they were covering the sky, and a lot of people were asking questions. We're saying, what is going on with the sky? What is this? Something that happened is that one day, all of a sudden, after a couple years of spraying like this, and my health was horrible, it became horrible as a result of this, there was a 4-day break where all the spraying stopped. After this 4-day break, it started again, but every single trail was now short, non-persistent. So within a 4-day period, they went from scheduled dispersions of these aerosols in the air, which anyone can see and a certain portion of the population can smell and taste, to having short, non-persistent trails. And if that wasn't enough, they actually sprayed at the same times. So the scheduling didn't change. They just picked up with the same schedule they had before, but all the trails were suddenly non-persistent. Now, a few days out of the month, they would be persistent again, but the rest of the month, they would be non-persistent. There was a dramatic, sudden change that happened. Now, if that wasn't enough, I moved to Bangor, Maine in 2008 because I was so sick, having such horrible inflammation and other symptoms from this. Nothing else. My health was perfect for the 5 years previous to this. I had never gotten sick or had a problem. I had to move forcibly to Bangor, where the spraying was much less. Well, in 2008, I moved here in April of 2008. In that summer, they started spraying almost like they were in Jamestown, where they were covering the sky every day. They were on a schedule. They would for 3 or 4 hours during the day, they would do it. Then it would get milder, and then at night they would do it. And the schedules would go on for months at a time. And then they would change the schedule. Like they might take Fridays off, where Friday would be really, really mild, but the rest, and this would go on for about 3 months. Then they changed the off day to Saturday, and then it would follow this pattern every single day like clockwork.
I'm just gonna.
Well, this is the very end of. I'm almost finished. I saw the very same thing happen in Bangor that I saw happen in Jamestown. Is that when these persistent trails that I can smell and taste as clear as anything else I smell and taste went from persistent to non-persistent, I saw the exact same thing happen in Bangor, Maine. Overnight, they went from saturating the sky. I have 3 years of almost solid continuous time-lapse of this happening. In fact, the Bangor Globe ran a story saying we are having the dimmest summer ever. The least amount of sunlight is reaching the ground, and everybody's scratching their head saying, gee, what is this? And I'm sitting here looking like, why are people's eyes not open? The jets are covering the skies. Well, the same thing happened in Bangor, that they went from this scheduled sky obscuring program of covering the sky and suddenly changed to non-persistent trails overnight. Now, in this case, I'm getting a little feedback, Kim. If you could mute your microphone, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm sorry. Sorry. In Bangor, the same thing happened that happened in Jamestown, where they went from persistent, scheduled spraying to non-persistent trails on the same schedule. The only difference is in Jamestown, there was a 4-day break between the change of persistent to non-persistent. But in Bangor, it was overnight, literally. But the scheduling was absolutely identical, absolutely the same. And the last thing I'll say before I close up here is that I've heard you talk at the very beginning and give the introduction about conspiracies. You know, you don't want to talk about conspiracies. You hear all kinds of crazy things online. And what I want to tell everyone, I see that we've got about 40 of 121 listening, and I think a lot of the people who are familiar with this know this, is that you know, 98% of white-collar crime is a conspiracy. Two or more people working together. Conspiracies are replete in history in governments. When governments become big and powerful, they start joining with business. And what they do is they start giving business contracts. Like today we have military contractors, and we have Dick Cheney and so many other politicians who had conflicts of interest because they were profiting either directly or indirectly from the very products and services that the government was buying from private industry. This is not only illegal, but it's a conspiracy when you have people getting together to provide profit. And this is replete throughout history. You have this in the Roman Empire. You have this in Egypt. You have this throughout history. You have the business sector trying to control the government. Eventually, they take it over, and that's considered fascism. So I think to suppress. I'm just about finished. Just a few more seconds. I think to suppress the idea that conspiracies don't exist is hogwash. It is absolutely completely overlooking all of history, because conspiracies do exist, and to deny that is just a fundamental issue with understanding history and understanding the geopolitics that we live in today. So those are the things I wanted. Feel free to respond. Apologize for talking so long, but I think I just wanted to get caught up and let people understand that I'm not naive to this issue. And as someone who can smell and taste these materials that are being dropped and who gets very sick. In fact, I had a heart attack last year. My heart attack was not because of a heart problem. It was because of extremely dangerously low potassium. Barium, which has been found at Mount Shasta, along with aluminum, in dangerous levels in rainfall, in repeatable experiments. I just got off the phone with a fella who is deeply involved in the testing. They have produced dozens of experiments. I have actually taken rainwater, and I have high levels of aluminum in our rainwater, which is just astonishing. The thing we have to realize about this is that these tests are repeatable, that they're being done, and to deny the fact that conspiracies exist is just overlooking everything we know about history. Go ahead, please.
All right. Well, geez, it's a lot easier. Like I try and take notes. That was a good 10, 15 minutes almost of points and stuff like that. Like it's hard to go back and readdress them because it's not part of the conversation anymore. You mentioned initially how this woman, maybe you're right. People don't all get sick at the exact same time. I'm not contesting that, but there's also the fact that some people get sick. Some people just get cancer. Like people do just get sick at random. It sucks. That's part of life. There's still this massive leap you have to make in order to associate a white trail overhead your house 40,000 feet with making you sick on the ground. I'll go on to the next point you made. You mentioned that you saw 747s and 737s that have been known to be converted into tankers. Actually, there isn't. There isn't a 747 that's been converted into like a fueling tanker. There's one that's been converted into a water bomber, but there's no 737s that have ever been converted into tankers. They're just too small. You said you could smell the air, and you talk about how you believe science is essentially wrong, that small particles will almost fall at free rate because there's no resistance to gravity. You're fundamentally wrong, because smoke is essentially small particles, and when a fire burns and everything, smoke fills a room. It doesn't settle within whatever the speed of gravity, which would take 2 seconds, right? But it doesn't. It persists, and like I can't I don't even know where to start with that. You're just fundamentally wrong. Like, science proves that small particles do stay suspended in the air. Now, in condensation trails, if they sublimate out of the atmosphere slowly, they'll form larger ice crystals. And these large ice crystals you can see sometimes, and there's lots of pictures where people are like, oh, they're cobwebs and they're stringers and stuff like that. And this is where the larger ice crystals, because they do have a bit more mass, will actually fall into lower air, which has a bit more speed to it than the higher air, which is a bit slower, and this will cause a dragging effect, and you'll see like streaking coming off of that. Now, with ice crystals, especially at that altitude, eventually they sublimate back into the environment, because there's a condensation trail is kind of a laneway where there's an abundance of water moisture. Around it, it's below the saturation point, so it's 98% humidity, let's say, just for numbers. Eventually, it'll all disperse, just like putting an air freshener in a room. That fragrance will eventually disperse around the whole room, because there's that effect. I think it's Boyle's law, where gases will eventually become like a standard level, like they will essentially mix with their surrounding. And so I don't know where else to go with that one. You mentioned that you saw these low level spraying. It doesn't make sense. If they're producing long condensation trails or contrails, or if you want to call them chemtrails, they're not doing it at low level. We're talking, typically you're going to start seeing on a cold day maybe 25,000, the lowest you're really going to see these, and typically they start around 30,000 feet plus. Now, you say you're 90 miles away from an airport. Chances are, if you're 90 miles away from an airport, this is where they're going to start to appear, because planes take a bit of time before they get up to altitude, and they're moving pretty quickly too. So, like, typically for us, for what the flying I'm doing, it may take as much as 35, 40 minutes to get up to altitude. And when you're moving at 400 miles an hour ground speed, that's 200 miles. And descending maybe a bit less. You usually descend 120 miles back, maybe 140. So the next problem I have is that you claim that you can taste them. And I'm not saying that you're not tasting something. I can't know for sure. But I'm telling you for a fact that you're not tasting aluminum from a trail that is flying well above you, because that's just not feasible. 40,000 feet, we're talking about 6 miles, 13 kilometers or so high. Like, this is a significant distance. If that was the case, you should be able to taste your neighbor's dinner while he's cooking it, or the sewage plant that's 5 miles down the street. Like, you should be able to taste everything. And realistically, that's not the case. Now, I'm willing to bet that it's probably more of an anticipation and some kind of placebo effect that's giving you this idea that you're tasting it. The idea is almost to the point of being absurd, because you're saying that these condensation trails are there and they're visible, and yet you're tasting stuff that's coming from them. So you should see that streak coming from 40,000 feet and almost meeting the ground, but you don't see that. You see it staying constant at a fixed altitude. So really, I don't know how you're making this connection that you see regular traffic at 3 p.m. Guess what? That's when a lot of people are flying. Like, most people want to be home by 5 p.m. Like, planes fly all the time during the day. You lived on the eastern seaboard. Do you have any idea how many thousands of planes are moving up and down that eastern seaboard in a given day? That you just saw a couple is remarkable that you didn't see more, to be honest. You mentioned the part where you'd see there'd be massive spraying programs, and then all of a sudden it'd be clear blue sky. I've tried to explain this enough times that warm fronts happen. Warm fronts come no matter what, and cold fronts come. When a warm front approaches, you have a lower pressure overriding a high pressure. This low pressure, this low pressure air is typically more moist and all the rest of it. As you approach that warm front, and we're talking about really, really shallow angles, like the angle of which these warm fronts usually come is about 1 to 400. So at let's say 6 miles high, 400, that's 2,400 miles to the front line. Like, there's a significant distance there, and people fail to realize that. So you see these contrails, and then you get the overcast cloud, which was going to happen anyway, because that's the way it works. And then after a warm front, after the clouds have passed, you get another high pressure system. This is normal. This is what you would expect to happen, and that's why you get the clear blue sky for a couple of days. It's not magic. Before planes flew, you would get cirrus cloud, you get rain, and then you get blue sky again, and then the same would repeat. This is just a fact of life. I'm not sure how to really go from that. Like, maybe you do have sensitive taste buds. I'm not going to deny that. But that you're tasting something that stays stationary, visibly stationary in the sky, 30 minutes after it's sprayed, yet you still see it at altitude, doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all. And I don't know how it can make sense to anybody else. That you see planes flying on a regular basis in the mid-afternoon. Yeah. What would you expect to happen?
Well, great. That's awesome. I appreciate your response. I'd love to refine that a little bit. Sure. I want to let you, first of all, I want to address the points. I have been taking notes. 747s, you said, have not been used as tankers. I'm on Wikipedia right now, and it says a proposed 747 was adopted as an aerial refueling tanker. It was bid against the DC-1030. So the DC-10s, the DC-9s were also used as tankers in the past, but this was all the way back in the 70s. Iran bought 747-100 aircraft. Actually, Iran bought 4 747-100 with air refueling boom conversions, and I could go on, but 747s are being used as tankers. It is well known. You can look it up online and see that if you like. 707s are also used. 707s actually have are an older jet from Boeing. They're used as tankers as well. There are a number of commercial jets. In fact, there was a big controversy a few years ago because the military had struck a deal, had a contract with Airbus, that's a European aircraft manufacturer, to produce a whole fleet, in fact 179 new tankers that were actually converted A330s. Of course, people went into an uproar saying, why is our U.S. government buying from a European company? So then they restructured the contract, so it was a split contract between Airbus and Boeing. And Boeing, one of the aircraft they were going to use as tankers was the civilian 767. So the process of converting civilian aircraft into tankers has been going on for decades, and this is no exception. Let me go through the other points that you made as well, and then
I just need to address that. Before we go on to the next point, I just want to address that. You get my points. I'll address them. 47s. They're like, sure, if there was proposals, maybe Iran bought some. I don't think Iran is flying any 747s right now. If they made an order for some, I don't think they ever took delivery of these. Airlines do, like, absolutely. The DC-10 converted, and the 767, sure, there are airline refuelers, but these are airline refuelers. These are not spraying machines. And if you just look at the inventory for what the U.S. military has to see how many air refuelers they have, you still have to account for the fact that they actually do need in-air refueling, and that they do actually do in-air refueling. They're just finishing up one of 2 wars that they just completed. They've been using those things like crazy over the Atlantics. How else do they get these?
In all respect, that is really not has no credibility at all, because the type of flying that is going on in these so-called wars is largely drone-based. Drones are not doing air refueling. We have 400 tankers roughly in our inventory right now, and the contract with Airbus and Boeing is for 179 new tankers. And I think people have to wonder, where on earth, why do we need so many tankers? But nevertheless, my real original point was that these civilian aircraft, including 747s, have been converted into tankers. They have been. I mean, that's just history. But regardless of what you want to believe, that's okay. You also mentioned in your dissertation that you want to say, do I think science is wrong? Smoke doesn't fall. Smoke has a different density than metals do. When you're dealing with a nanoparticle metal, again, like I said, you can look at the videos of Apollo astronauts dropping a hammer and a feather in a vacuum, and they hit the ground at the same time. That's because there's a gravitational acceleration, which is a constant. The only limiting factor in the descent of a particle, the only limiting factor in the descent of a particle is density, which is basically its ratio between its air resistance and it is a ratio of its air resistance. So if you have a feather, you have a certain amount of weight but it's displacing a larger amount of air. When you're dealing with nanoparticle aluminum or nanoparticle barium, you're dealing with something that has such a small air displacement. And this goes perfectly along with my observations and the observations of many others that I've spoken with, is that 30, 40 minutes after this low altitude spraying, and I'll address that in a minute because you were saying they're not spraying at low altitude. Yes, they are spraying at low altitudes because I'm watching them. They actually, the particles do descend. Now there's no problem with the fact of observing that the smoke portion or the visible portion of these trails may stay in the air while a metallic component of these trails are dropping out. And I believe that artifact we see of this are what many people call the drippy edge chemtrails. Is you see these trails and you see these edges that kind of look like teardrops falling out, which really show you that there's a component that seems to be heavier and a component that is lighter. So I think calling science wrong, I'm using science. You can go on Wikipedia if you like to and look at what determines how fast the particle descends. It has to do with its air displacement, which is density, because how much air is it displacing versus its weight. The requirements based on NASA's own numbers for a condensation trail to form, negative 40 degrees centigrade, somewhere between 72 and 80 degrees percent humidity. Very rare do you see very, very cold temperatures like that with high humidity, which is probably why us older people have never seen trails come out of jets, or if we have, it's been very isolated, very rare, and that's why, again, this is an artifact of truth here, which is why I haven't seen a trail all my life, and I'm a collector of pictures, and I have watched the sky, and I've been all over the United States, and I've used to fly every year from my childhood. So to say that this is due to some increase in air traffic, my observations in Jamestown, New York, is that this happened in one day. They were flying extremely low. You could count the engines with your bare eyes. You could see the color on the planes because those original jets that were flying had colors. Every one since then, after the first year, they were all silver, unmarked jets. They have no markings on them. And since, just as I said before, they also changed from persistent trails to non-persistent trails, Likewise, they've also changed altitude. I saw in one day they started going up to a higher altitude, still not at 32,000 feet, obviously, still visible, but they went all higher. So there's been patterns and sudden changes to the traffic that makes perfect sense if you're trying to keep this kind of activity out of the mind of the public by trying to spray higher so that the trails are not as apparent, and by converting the equipment in such a way that the trails are non-persistent. These are all consistent ideas with trying to keep this out of the mind of the public. A couple more points you made, as you said, it takes 40 minutes to get up to altitude. Well, I kind of already addressed that. In Jamestown, the nearest, the jets showed up one day. You never see jets in the air in Jamestown because there are no nearby. I mean, I live there. I always watch the sky, and then all of a sudden overnight to have these crisscrossing the sky, making grid patterns in the sky. I have pictures. I watched and saw this. This is not normal air traffic. These are unmarked. One day they changed from being colored jets to being unmarked. They have no markings on them that we can see. They're silver, unmarked jets. Also, the claiming that perhaps what all these people are smelling and tasting who are traditionally sensitive to smells and tastes based on environmental illness, doctors will tell you this is very common, is not in our minds. This is typically what people who are this is what the media tries to say if they're spreading disinformation. This is traditionally tactics that have been used by disinformationalists in the past, is to say this is some sort of mass delusion. People are imagining things in the mind. And then, of course, over and over again, we find out that they weren't, and it really was happening. So the idea of spreading, trying to tell everyone they're delusional, is really just a delay tactic. That's how this has been used in the past. It has no credibility, and it flies in the face of ridiculousness, of being ridiculous. The other thing is that you say planes fly all the time during the day. Again, I saw these patterns in the sky. I witnessed the patterns. I smell and taste the chemtrails. I've been a sky watcher all my life. I've been a collector of photographs. The conditions for contrail formation are very rare, which is why people of my age have almost never seen them before. And I would also tie this up.
Sorry, did you cut out?
Last thing I'd like to say is I'd like to tie up my little section here by saying that you have to be very careful with science, because a lot of people like to come forth and saying, well, the science says this and the science says that. And I am a lover of science. I love the quest for knowledge of mankind. I love the process, and I am very interested in many sciences. I'm the kind of geek that reads chemistry books in my spare time, chemistry textbooks, because I love it. I think nature is a beautiful and tremendously complex treasure chest of information. Here's the problem, however. There is a group of people who have published their intentions to take science and use it for profit. And what they do, and a good example of this is pharmaceutical industry, is that you had pills like Vioxx that killed something like 30,000 people. Hopefully I have the name of the drug right. That killed 30,000 people, was taken off the market for a short time and then reinstituted because they say the benefits outweigh the deaths of these people. The risks outweigh the benefits outweigh the risk. But you have to remember, all these drugs that have these side effects that have been taken off the market were proven safe and effective before they were ever put on the market. We have found that there are scientific journals that have shadow writing doctors. The doctors do not write the articles, but the pharmaceutical companies who fund the studies say, oh, yes, that they did. It has been uncovered that there's been a tremendous amount of corruption in the field of science, because not only does business throughout history take over governments, they lobby governments. We know that millions and millions of dollars go into lobbying governments, but now we have FDA commissioners or FDA high officials that actually come from the very industries they regulate. This is a ripe minefield for corruption, which is obviously just an artifact of why we see so much of this corruption going on. And the process that these business leaders have written for taking over science, they call scientism. They have said that we will use science to further our causes, and paraphrasing, they use science to increase their profits. They make up shadow writers. They have fake journal articles. They falsify studies. Even Searle actually had a study about the safety of NutraSweet. It came out, this was on 60 Minutes, and the story's never run again, that a technician was paid $30,000 to say that these rats have eaten the NutraSweet, the aspartame, when actually the crystal particles that were put in the feed bowl were too large for the animals to ingest. And then the technician was paid $30,000 to say, oh yes, they ate it all. So when the rats didn't come down with cancers and the other problems that have now been shown to be associated with this, they had their so-called evidence, scientific evidence that, oh, it's not toxic. But it was a lie, it was a bribe, and it all goes together with this concept of scientism, using false and fake science. And so what I would like to say to people out there is don't ever subvert your common sense for somebody's claim for science. This is coming from someone who loves science. I believe we should pursue science, but in this day and age of massive corruption, not proposed corruption, not speculated corruption, not claimed corruption, proven, known, widespread corruption in these industries that have done so-called science, don't ever subvert your own common sense and your own observations to the claims of someone who claims to be making scientific statements. Go ahead.
I would like to make an interjection at this time, an important one. Our guest here, John, had an arrangement with me. I told him out of respect for his time, we would have up to 2 hours of his time when we're fast approaching that limit. And I'm very grateful for his contribution. I'm happy that this conversation we all had together, several hundred of us, was generally in a very positive way. We don't have to agree, but I'm hoping that we made some significant progress and in our ways. We're trying to convince each other of what we believe to be true. And so I recommend that we make closing remarks. I will give mine in a second. And before we do, I would like to apologize for all the people who have sent text messages to us while we were talking here, asking so many questions, and which we didn't answer. And to them I say, we cannot answer them all now because the answers are quite lengthy. And John doesn't have the time right now, but John does have a Facebook profile. I forget what it is again. It's Blue Skies.
White Lines, yeah.
Blue Sky, White Lines, right?
Yeah.
Oh no,
right.
Sorry, John dot
Oh,
White
yeah.
Lines.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. The other one is your Skype. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So we will continue a conversation on his site, and we're very grateful that he did his best to answer what he sees to be the truth, and I'm grateful for what we did as well. My last comment before I pass on the microphone to you folks is the Council of Foreign Relations, this is the political perspective, has produced an article, and it's on their website, saying that they highly recommend planetary scale aerosol geoengineering as soon as possible, and they suggest a budget of $300 billion per year to do this, and this will be accomplished by some sort of global taxation. I don't want to go into the details of it now. You can check it on the Council on Foreign Relations site. For those who don't know what that is, it's the international political it forms the public relations, foreign relations policies for the United States government, Washington. So those are my last words. Anybody else would like to go next?
Yeah, I'd like to address some of the previous callers, a couple of statements. He claims to be a proponent of science, yet he he gets so many things so wrong, and I just don't understand where he's coming from with this. Like the small particles, yeah, like you don't have to explain Newton's theory. I understand how that works and gravity. It's understood. But particles, small particles, do stay suspended in the air. Like that's the reason that the contrails persist, is because they're small ice particles. Sure, aluminum may be a little bit heavier than water, but it's not by much. Like, and then he made statements like, well, for contrails to form, it has to be below 40 degrees Celsius and above 80 degrees humidity. And he says, well, that doesn't happen very often. In fact, it does. It's almost all the time. The amount of water that a body of air can hold is conditional by its temperature. And any Canadian can attest that you can see your breath when it's a cold day. It might be dry as hell. Any Canadian will attest that their house starts to creak and their doors are loose and all the rest of it in the wintertime, because it's such a dry environment. But it doesn't take much to add just a little bit of moisture to that air before it reaches its saturation point. That's why you see exhaust plumes out of the back of cars. You get. I can't begin to explain how wrong he is. As you approach minus 60 degrees Celsius, the water potential for a volume of air is almost zero. It really can't support or maintain as a gaseous state any water vapor, and that's why you get condensation trails. He talks about silver jets and unmanned. There's no such thing. I've explained this in some of the comments. There's a reason why you look up and you see an unmarked plane. It's because you're looking at the underside of a jet. Airlines don't paint the undersides of the jets, and there's a couple of reasons for this. One is because they get dirty. Two is because of the weight of the paint, and this is the big one. People don't grasp how expensive it is to paint a plane, let alone transport that paint around. Like on my aircraft, I think it's about 800 kilograms of paint on a given paint job. Now, to transport 800 kilograms around the world is a huge cost, and that's cost that is taken away from potential cargo and everything else. And American Airlines were the smart ones. They don't even bother painting their planes. They paint their tails and their names on the side, but it's just polished aluminum. It's a brilliant idea. They save tons of money not shipping around a painted aircraft. There's no benefit to painting the underside of a plane, because the only people see it are the people on the ground, and it's so small anyway. What would be the advantage? He says, there's part of the condensation trail that persists, and then there's the part that falls. I explained briefly how larger ice crystals fall into faster moving air, and you'll get that streaking effect. And I explained that part of it is because those bigger ice crystals have more density and thus fall a bit faster. But what he wants you to believe is that in 30 minutes, a trail above him is going to somehow make it to his mouth. The idea of something... The concentration would have to be so ridiculously high as to travel 8 miles and still be at a concentration that was even perceivable. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand how anybody could see that as even being a rational argument. Then he talks about the United States is corrupt and everything, and the governments. I don't want to get into the medical stuff. Sure, yeah, there's a lot of people making money. The U.S. is ripe with corruption. I'm not gonna deny that. It's all for the fat cats and the people making the money at the top. I get that. Canada's not quite as bad. There is still corruption, but it's not to the same level. Thank God for universal health care. But I don't understand how we can go from one to the other. I'm happy to stay on here a bit longer if you want. I don't really want to get off topic like this. My specialty is in the airline industry, flying the environment, the atmosphere and stuff. This is where my expertise is. To talk about drugs doesn't do anybody any service at this point. What I can tell you is that there is no aluminum being sprayed from these planes, and that there's no unmarked planes, and that in the thousands and thousands of hours of flying down south over the United States, I've never to this day seen a single plane that I couldn't identify as being from an airline or from the U.S. military, and they all have call signs, and I've never seen a trail coming from a jet that wasn't expected, that wasn't coming from its jet engines, that wasn't exactly where it should be. I've never passed a plane where I'm like, that guy shouldn't be producing a trail, yet he is. It's just never happened.
Well, John, thank you so much for your comments about aluminum. However, as Sylvain pointed out, the process of spraying aluminum, the proposal has been on the table for several years by the U.S. government and the governments of other countries. They are not making this up. They're not spouting some kind of theories or conspiracy theories. What they are talking about is spraying aluminum, tiny aluminum particles that they even in an article that was widespread and distributed in many countries called pollution particles into the air to reflect sunlight. This is not my word. This is not what I'm saying. This is what they are proposing. Now, it's a typical tactic that governments, and especially fascist governments that are largely controlled by corporations such as we have today, to use a technique of disinformation where they say, hey, we're going to do something in the future, but they actually start doing it before they say they're doing it. This is a disinformation technique that's very well known. It displaces the timeline of an actual event occurring, and this is clearly what we see going on. You mentioned about that they don't paint the underside of jets. Well, the first year we actually saw jets that had engines and the tail painted red. Now, we're not looking at jets, I think you know this, we're not looking at jets straight on from the bottom. We're looking at them at some angle because not every one of these jets flies directly over our heads. Most of them are at some angle. So we can see the tail, we can see the side of the fuselage, we can of course see the engines. So if you look at jets from Virgin Airlines or any commercial jets, they do paint some of the portion of their planes. And I know you mentioned about the tails of American Airlines, but Virgin Airlines does a lot of painting. And why would they do this, you asked? Well, the answer to that is for promotion, for business purposes, because when you own a corporation, you want your name and your logo to be visible everywhere you can put it. And so if you've got big jets flying in and out of airports in the air, you want to put your logos. So what I'm talking about, the jets that I have seen that appeared after the first year, like I said, they had red tails and all four engines were red. After that, they suddenly changed to silver, unmarked jets. Now, this is not my observation. This is the observation of thousands of people that I have been in contact with over the years, because again, it was 7 years ago that I saw this began in the place I live. So I'm not just saying that I'm seeing this. There are thousands of people who are seeing this exact same thing. Finally, very briefly, you talked about particles not descending, and you seem to be kind of confused, thinking that particles could descend quickly. Again, I refer people, Wikipedia does have some good information about how density affects the descent rate of particles. When you're dealing with nanoparticles of metals, you have a high mass versus a low cross section, so you have very low air resistance. So unlike a feather that has to displace a lot of air as it descends, a nanoparticle is moving very quickly because it doesn't have to displace but a few atoms, a very relatively small number of atoms. So it's a ratio between the mass and the cross section, which is what they call density. So the idea of very small particles descending very quickly is not a mystery at all. It's something that people can go research themselves if they want. And finally, the last thing you had brought up is, or one thing I wanted to say, and I'm a little disturbed by this, but before this conversation started, I visited your Facebook page and you had a link to the Contrail Science website. Well, if anyone, this is contrailscience.com, anyone who has studied this subject for any length of time knows that the Contrail Science website is a very well-known debunking website that is run by a guy named Mick West. I know someone who actually has spoken to Mick at length and who has quite honestly, and I want to say this respectfully, but says that he is not really operating in in a full capacity. I don't know how else to say it, but MIC is not functioning with full integrity, and that's the feedback that I've received. But nevertheless, on the Contrail Science website that is operated by MIC West, that you have a link to on your Facebook page, they show pictures of clouds. These are these new clouds that are, for instance, displayed on the NASA cloud charts for children that have been distributed into some schools. And being that I have watched the sky my entire life and that I have taken 3 years of time-lapse photography, I know that clouds have changed dramatically when this spraying activity started in the areas where I lived. And what it did is it created new formations in the sky that I have never seen before. I'm a 48-year-old man who has watched the sky since I was in an elementary school, and I know what clouds look like. But when spraying started, these clouds are brand new formations that have not been seen except in isolated incidences, because spraying has occurred as far back as Vietnam and World War II. And this, of course, is also documented why people have in years past seen trails come out of jets, but on rare occasions in isolated areas, which are probably used for testing before they went widespread with this program. So the idea that you have a link to the Contrail Science website that shows these cloud structures, claiming these cloud structures to be natural formations, when I have for 7 years and hundreds of people that I've spoken to have seen these cloud formations form only in the presence of and out of the aerosols that persist behind these jets. These cloud formations don't form out of natural formation, through natural processes that we see. So this is something brand new. The Contrail Science website is being completely dishonest about this. We have firsthand evidence about the nature of the believed nature from trusted people about the nature of the people running, or the person running that website, to not be having integrity. And I finally would like to say that in my normally when you see a cumulus cloud, you have a very well-defined cloud. It has very sharp edges, and when you take time-lapse photography of that structure, it is moving upward from the center. And this is because warm air is moving up into a cold air layer, which is condensing. And of course, it's an age-old phenomenon, and we know all about that. What we are seeing in these so-called cumulus clouds today, and again, this is ignoring all of the other structures that are being lied about being called natural in these cloud charts and on the Contrail Science website, that are not. They form out of the trails of jets. These clouds, when you take these cumulus clouds that have fuzzy edges, they have very diffused edges, are rotating backwards. They are going downward in the center. And my proposal, and it seems like a very logical proposal, is that when you disperse large amounts of particulates into the air, you do two things. The first thing you do is you create condensation nuclei, which are little particles that condensation likes to build up on. And those condensation nuclei, being that they're metal in our observations, fall down through the warmer layer and cause a condensation of the cold air into the warm air, and so you get a reversal in the spin direction of the clouds. Again, all of the things that I've said in this discussion so far make perfect sense with our observations. The second thing I'd like to say is that I have an atmospheric scientist. In fact, I just got off the phone with him, but we've been having conferences. These are scientists, and they will tell you that what they have observed over and over again is that weather stations and weather forecasters have predicted rain in a certain location. The clouds will move in, preceded by very heavy aerosol releases by these unmarked silver jets. And then guess what? It doesn't rain. Well, the scientific explanation that makes sense for that is that when you have an overabundance of condensation nuclei, you don't have enough moisture available in the air to condense to a state of rain. This, again, is a very solid, well-known scientific problem. And so what we've seen is that these aerosols that very heavily precede these fronts that are supposed to be releasing rain and are predicted to release rain do not release rain. I have seen this go on for years now, where here we've had these fronts moved in that were supposed to release rain. For 12 to 24 hours before it hits, we have exceptionally heavy spraying. The taste of metal, we can see it, plus the taste of metal and the odor and all of the physical symptoms that go along with it are all present much stronger before the rain. And then guess what? The clouds do not release rain. So anyway, all of these things I'm saying are based in science, and they correlate perfectly with the observations of not only myself, but hundreds and thousands of people out there that I've spoken to, not to mention the scientists that I have spoken to. So we just don't seem to have a mystery here. We need to use common sense and not be distracted or afraid at the idea that there might be a conspiracy, because conspiracies do exist. 2 or more people do get together. Businesses do control governments, try to control regulatory agencies. These are business models that have gone on for centuries.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt you there because I don't want to get off onto another tangent here. I don't even know where to go with this because it just keeps going around in circles. You have to pick one camp or the other. Either the aluminum particles that you claim are being sprayed are staying up in the atmosphere or they're not. Like they're falling in 30 minutes or they're not. Either you can't have both, right? Like this is where this conspiracy seems to go off in all sorts of directions. It's military planes, it's civilian planes. Well, what is it? Is it one or the other? Is it staying up in the air to reflect light, or isn't it? Is it falling down so you can taste it? Like what is the consensus? There's no consensus. It keeps getting wider and wider and wider. And this is what I said at the beginning is that there's a way of determining what is reality from what is fact, or reality from what is fiction. Reality, you should have a convergence of all sorts of independent sources all converging on the same point. With a conspiracy like this, it's a secret government, it's the U.S. military, it's civilian airlines getting paid off. It's for GMO, for crops, it's for reflecting sunlight, it's for causing Alzheimer's. There's no consensus whatsoever, and it keeps diverging in so many different ways. And every time one is kind of demonstrated to be actually factually wrong, it just spreads off into another one. I've heard even things such as alien spacecraft and alien technologies and holographic aircraft. It gets absurd. Now, if there's all these unpainted planes, where are they? Nobody knows where they are because they don't exist. You mentioned red paint on the planes. Sure, I forget what the airline was. I think it was Northwest. They did that. They painted their planes like that. They don't exist anymore. That's why you don't see them anymore. It's because that airline is gone now. Like these answers are there. You just have to do some research, and that you want to trash some website that disagrees with your point of view and say that he's not entirely stable. I ask that the people that are genuinely interested listen to some of his videos. He's well spoken, he's intellectual, he provides reference and source to everything he says. He's not asking for donations. He's not trying to sell you some magical potion, and he's not spreading fear. And there's a difference between the two, right? I get you're worried that the government is trying to do all these nasty things for you. It's rational to have a bit of fear or a bit of mistrust, but to say that you have an organization with millions of people, because you still need the pilots, you still need the ground crew, you still need the companies producing the planes, and that there could be so much and yet so little evidence. I forget the name of Rosalind Peterson. She says in the last 10 years of doing research, she has yet to find a single fact. There's a video documenting her saying, yeah, I would take them to court, I would sue, but in 10 years I have yet to find a single fact that substantiates what I think that the airlines are spraying. So if any researcher in the real world was to take 10 years doing research and find no evidence for what they presume to be the cause, you would be thrown out. You couldn't get any funding whatsoever for such preposterous waste of time. I don't understand why people still, after seeing that, I can demonstrate to you when a contrail will form, how it'll form, when it'll persist. You mentioned that before clouds you get condensation trails. Sure, I've explained this. It's to do with the warm front. As you approach an area of warmer, moister air, you're more likely to get condensation trails. I don't need to explain this stuff over and over again. Like we're going round in circles. There's a way to determining truth, and it's based on provable. And I can do this. And for anybody that wants to, I can show them. They can call me and say, listen, there's these trails over my head today. Can you find it? I can go onto the internet. I can tell you exactly what the humidity, what the temperature is, what type of plane it is. Like this information is free to the public. It's not that hard to find. Anyway, I think at this stage we're just going around in the circles with this caller. I'm not sure if Sylvain, are you still there?
Please, can I chime in?
Sure.
Okay, I think I want to thank you for having this conversation today, whether we agree or disagree on our points or what it is we currently believe. I have a lot of respect for you that you're willing to take your time and have this discussion with me. I would like to see a continuation of this conversation. I'd like to see some of the people who were able to participate today, that they have the ability to do more research, grab more of their evidences, and bring them to you on your Facebook page and present them there and give you the opportunity to review them. And then I'd like to see another open discussion like this with maybe an agenda. And then I just, my love goes out to everybody involved right now. I feel sorry for Russ. I feel bad. I feel you, brother. I know what it's like when you've experienced it firsthand and somebody's sitting there telling you, no, you didn't. And I just want to remind everybody that when we have these conversations that it's okay to disagree with what other people are saying. It's okay to not be ready to accept or take the other person's position. But I don't think that it's ever good for a conversation like this to tell other people that they're wrong, that what they're thinking is not correct, that they just don't know what the hell they're talking about or what it is that they're presenting, and that the person believes in. To tell them that they're just, that they're wrong, it shuts down people from wanting to communicate, or it stops people from wanting to be involved in conversations like this. And so to avoid shutting down such a vital conversation, I think it's really important that we respect each other and not say negative things about the information that other people are presenting. I'd like to find a way for us to diplomatically do that so that we can continue this.
Kim, I really appreciate your comments, and I'd love to add to that. And John, I do appreciate you being here. I think that one thing that we all have to be very straightforward and honest about is that there is a government-sponsored disinformation department. Money is spent specifically to hire people to sit in rooms with laptops and computers and create false identities on Facebook, people to go out and create websites and blogs that proliferate fake and false information, fake, false pseudoscience. And this is one thing that, although I like to be kind and respectful of other people, as well as you, John, is that I just see some artifacts of your discussions where you're trying to associate me with fear. You're trying to discount conspiracies outright from the very beginning of the conversation. You have a link on your website to the Contrail Science website, which contains a tremendous amount of false information. I also personally know someone who actually I know someone personally who actually was a military buddy, actually served together with another man who went on to have a contract with the government and has 200 people that sit in a room with computers, create false blogs, false Facebook accounts, and they spread lies about all kinds of information, from vaccines to contrails, chemtrails. And one of the methods that they try to use, and you talked about how people associate this with aliens and with all kinds of fire. Well, that's another disinformation technique that they use, is they try to put information out there that sounds really difficult for the public to grasp and accept, and they put that information and they create an association. So much disinformation uses association. So they try to associate you know, the idea of the government spraying particles in the atmosphere with far out snake oil, paranoid people. And I've seen you actually do this in our conversation. You use the word fear, and you tried to associate me and the people who believe what I believe from our own observations with being afraid. You have links to the Contrail Science website, which clearly has a tremendous amount of disinformation. And any thinking person knows today that disinformation campaigns have been around since Nazi Germany. And today we have video on YouTube. You can see Hillary Clinton lobbying for hundreds of millions of more dollars to get more disinformation out there. So, John, quite frankly, I don't know who you are, and I've been attempting to treat you like a gentleman. But what I've witnessed here today is that you have used techniques that are known disinformation techniques. I'm almost done. I'm almost finished. You have been using techniques that are known disinformation techniques. You've been using association techniques. You have been using marginalization techniques. And although I appreciate you, I know you're a human being, and I hope the best for you. But I certainly hope that whether you are a disinformationalist or whether you are an actual just guy who learned the wrong things, I hope that you do study this and realize that if people are out there spreading disinformation historically in governments like Nazi Germany, these were the first people who were marginalized and isolated from the government. Being in a position of disinformation is a very dangerous place to be. I'm not speaking this out of some kind of claim or conspiracy theory. I'm stating this out of historical fact. So I hope that anyone out there who attempts to spread disinformation is very aware of the dangers of being involved in disinformation.
I got to butt in here. Like, okay, I sure don't see that's Blue Sky's that disinfo agent.
Thank you.
The day we all agree is the day we could all be wrong. You just can't. We're not going to be on the same page ever. Don't. The day we are is the day we're all in trouble. I don't know where Roseanne Barr is because she's really big into this chemtrail stuff, and she should have been here. Beautiful Roseanne. And just let me say, I really appreciate you being here, Blue Sky. I mean, it's not easy for any of us to try and to sort this out and put this together. And I think we've had a great talk here today. My only thing is, it brings me back to subsidies. Like, it's obvious to me that you are unaware, and even probably the airlines are unaware of anything that's going on. But we as people are quite aware that something's going on. We just can't put our finger on it. But even, see, there's corporations involved here. And so if we start to look at, let's say, subsidization of airlines and fuel costs, who's subsidizing those fuel costs? What corporations are doing that? And I really like the idea of getting some fuel samples, because I'd be interested in knowing what's in the fuel, because it seems to me you're unaware, and probably the airlines are unaware that they are involved in any sort of what would you call it, activity. But that's about all I had to really say.
30 seconds, I'd just like to say that, John, you did mention about Rosalind Peterson saying that there is no evidence. That's taken out of context. I think if we're going to be honest, you can watch the video on YouTube where she sits for 60 to 90 minutes and provides a tremendous amount of evidence that spraying is going on based in science, based in samples, based in flight observations. So I just want to make sure that we're being honest in our portrayal of these people. Rosalind did say that there was no evidence, but she said it in a very specific context, and I think that we need to take the whole of what she's saying so we get an accurate portrayal of what these people are saying. So we just need to make sure we're being accurate and honest here.
Oh, just a quickie here. I do speak to Rosalind from time to time, who lives in California, and she does believe that this phenomenon is taking place, but she has never blamed planes. Never.
Never blamed planes?
Yeah, she's not saying that the pilots are doing it. She never said that. Not once.
No, I agree, and that's the problem. There really is no connection. And like I asked the gentleman that said he'd like to get fuel samples, get a fuel sample. Go to the edge of an airport, like, because the amount of fuel you burn on takeoff, you just have to stand behind one of those jets. You can smell the kerosene coming off those engines as they spool up.
Wow,
just
you called
take
me a gentleman? You called me a gentleman. I heard.
Yeah. But like it's that easy. Like the idea that nobody has found a plane yet, a picture, and I asked people to send me a picture of an airline or a jet that is spraying, and not one from the ground, but like a picture of a plane that you can say, yeah, this is the plane that we think is suspect and that's doing the spraying. Like there hasn't been one yet. There's a corporation that's running this all, but what corporation? Nobody knows. And the reason there's so many unanswered questions is because you're asking the wrong questions. The question is why are those white trails there? Why do they persist? And I can tell you why they persist. I can tell you when they form. I can tell you how long they're going to be. I can tell you the type of plane it is that's producing it. I can do this.
But
and if you want to know the truth, I'm happy to do this for you.
In my opinion, if they're normal, there should be something done about it. Because even if they're if that's just normal, there's nothing normal about all of a sudden the sky being white at the end of the day.
Sure, and see, like if that's your complaint, absolutely, you can say that. Like I can't disagree with you. If you prefer to see the skies blue, there's ways to do it, but like I said, it's not going to happen anytime soon.
We'd have to stop flying.
We would have to stop the flying, exactly, and that's really not an option in this like. Well, like any time you burn a hydrocarbon, you're going to produce water. Like that's just the reality. Even burning hydrogen fuel is going to produce nothing but water. The only potential, and I think this is going to happen, maybe not in my lifetime, but in the next generation.
Magic carpets never have those things behind them.
No. I think eventually we're going to see suborbital flights where you climb up to altitude, get into the outer layer of space, cruise around the Earth, and then re-enter the atmosphere, not burning any fuel. And I think that's going to be the potential future of air travel, because it makes much more sense, far less costly on fuel. We just need to develop the technology and all the rest of it. And I think eventually that'll be there. But for now, I think as long as there's air travel, as long as you're burning hydrocarbons, you're going to be producing water. And when you produce water in an environment that's up to or as low as minus 70 degrees Celsius, the inevitable cause of that is you're going to produce white trails as it sublimates out of the atmosphere. And I'd love to go on with this discussion, and I appreciate some of the people that are here. I just want to one comment. I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be negative towards some people, and I don't want to say somebody is stupid or anything like that, because that's not my intent here. I'm ignorant on a lot of things. Like I don't understand how plants reproduce, or there's enough topics that I'm ignorant on. And this is a topic that I'm well versed in. This is something that I'm well knowledgeable in. And when I say something is wrong, I'm not saying it from a point of it's an opinion, or I'm saying it's wrong because I can prove to you with facts that it's wrong. And it's like saying somebody has an opinion that the Earth is flat, and to say that they're wrong, it's not negative to say that person is wrong.
And that's what makes factual. That's what makes this whole conversation and this discussion historically land-breaking. I mean, we're really, that's what's so great about you being here, Blue Sky, is it's great to have the other side. I mean, that's what we need. We need the other side of this story.
Okay, and I'd love to do this again, and I think next time I should be like the lady said, that we should have a bit more structure. I beg somebody, please send me a picture of a plane that could potentially do this, an airport where these potential planes could be. I would love to see this community get together and to say, you know what, enough's enough. We believe it for preventing global warming. It's not GMO, or like at least come to some kind of consensus. And I would love to see that, and maybe Sylvain could try and organize that. Do we airline jets? Do we think it's military jets? Do we think it's drones? Do we think it's alien ships? There has to be a consensus. You have to come together on certain topics here.
One thing I'd like to, I think that there is much more of a consensus than a lot of us believe, and if you would bear me about a few seconds, I would love to play this clip from Rosalind Peterson about what she says, because it has been said that she had said that there was no evidence. But please listen to this clip very carefully, and let's.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I have listened to it, and I'll listen to it again if you like. But we can do that another time. Like I've really got to get going. I'd like to say just a few last things when we leave. I'll let Sylvain. Do you want to say anything before I go too, or?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd like to invite Russ, and then afterwards Hans. Any comments? Any last words about this historical worldwide meeting that we had just now? Russ?
Yeah, what did you invite me to do? I'm sorry?
No, in conclusion to this historical first-time event, for truthers to speak to an official pilot, I would like to ask you to give your final words, and then after that I'll invite Hans to do that, and then I'll invite Blue Sky to do the same, and then we'll conclude and prepare for the next one. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, thanks so much, Sylvain, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this. I'll make it very brief because I've been wordy before, but I've been wordy because I have a lot of information that's very important, and I believe that this is the most important subject and issue that we face today. I guess I'll just end by saying that I can smell and taste chemtrails, and the world is replete with disinformation and lies, and we need to make sure every truther, everybody who's seeking the truth, needs to be aware that governments have lied throughout history. Science, so-called, has been documented to be falsified in this time, just so much so that it's sometimes just amazing at how much disinformation is out there. The final thing is Rosalind Peterson was mentioned earlier as giving no evidence. I've got the YouTube video in front of my face on my computer where I won't play the clip because I know we're a little short on time, but she actually talks about how she's correlating spikes in chemicals across the state of California with the flights, with the appearance of these jets with trails. So I believe that that she actually does correlate this, and I think if anyone wants to check it out for themselves, go on YouTube, search for Rosalind Peterson, and listen to her interview from the user called the Info Warrior, and it pretty much lays it right out. She does an excellent job of showing that there are correlations, and let's get the truth out there. Let's be honest. I have no agenda other than to save my health and to do good for the world. So let's try to have integrity in everything that we do, and also while we do that, be wise and realize that the level of deception that is out there is at an all-time high. Isn't it? William Colby, ex-CIA director, I believe, was his position. He actually said, "We know our job will be complete when everything the American public believes is false." And this is, of course, a reference to their heavy involvement with disinformation, with misinformation, with scientism, false science. So people need to be honest, to have integrity, but also use common sense and understand that the level of deception and the depth of deception is very, very deep. So please be aware and be wise and take care of yourselves.
Okay, thank you, Ross. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Pocket. And now, Hans, I'll let you speak, and then we'll let Blue Sky have the final word.
Okay, now it's my turn. Thank you so much all, not only the people who are watching this, also to all our guests. You are so great, and it's like Pocket Fuzz told us, it's also good to listen to the other side, because we need that. We need more opinions. We need to see what they are thinking, pilots also. And okay, now some personal words of me about what I think about this. Look, about the commercial flights, I don't think that is made only of the commercial flights, the chemtrails. There are other planes involved too. And why I say this, or why I think this, is because I have watched, you know, I live in Mexico City and I have watched a lot of chemtrails here too. But if it would be a commercial flight, there would be always the in the same place, or they would repeat, you know. Here where I live, I have an airport very close, like 20 minutes with the car. And where the commercial flights are coming is another route. So where the chemtrails are appearing is another place. So also I have how do I say, glasses to see a little bit closer, and they don't have any like Russ Tanner also told us, they don't have any signs like the you know, Lufthansa, American Airlines, Delta, or whatever, you know, they're like white here in Mexico City. And those chemtrails, I also took some pictures, and I will introduce now for the first time on this live stream. I was also playing with the contrast and with the colors a little bit, and then you can see even more than the eye can see. So I have a picture before and the original one. So what is here is, maybe, I don't know if the quality is good enough. What you can see, this is the edited one, playing a little bit with the contrast and stuff like this, and this is the normal one. We just see a little white here, but when you go back again to the picture, then you see the, let me see, it's a little bit slow here, the computer. Oh, there's another one. Okay, here was the other one. Then you can see the cloud a little bit better. Okay, this was the original one. Now the edited one. Okay, the edited one, here you can see very clearly the chemtrail. And this is the original one. You can see the difference. Tack, tack. Here almost you don't see it, but they're there. Here's the proof. The chemtrails are there. So the next one, the edited one, you can also see the what they are leaving after spraying. And the original one, that's like milky, you know. Then next one. Have to wait. Okay, the edited one, boom, boom, and this is not normal. For me, it's not normal. And here the original one. Next one. After what they are leaving us in the clouds, and the original one. Almost you don't notice them anymore, but they are still there. That was me pointing to one of the chemtrails here, and the original one here, very clear. This is not a contrail at all for me. And the original one, now you also can see it here. Okay, here some minutes later, what they are leaving us, original one. Then look at that mess here. Is that normal? I don't think so. And the original one, you even can see it there a little bit. Here the edited one, there's even something, it's not the sun, because the sun is in another place. It's like could be a harp impact, I don't know. And the original one, you see the difference? Just playing a little bit with the contrast, and you get better proofs of this, you know. Okay, here you almost don't see it. Here with the edited one, and the original one, just getting more milky the sky. Edited one, this is all the chemtrails here, and the original one almost is gone. Here, wow, look at that. Edited one and the original one here. And after a while everything is like milky in the sky. You don't see anything more. like they're covering us with something, you know. Here again, the edited one and the original one. Edited one, it's getting more milky, the sky. And the original one, the same one, you know. Edited one, look at that. Chemtrails, chemtrails, not clouds. Original one. Because I was following for hours the sky, because I was outside working, and then I got this. This one is the edited one, where I can see something like, I don't know, circles here. In the original one, you don't notice it even. But when you edit that picture, you see, I don't know what that is. Okay, then another one. Sky is getting painted. Original one, you don't notice anything. Here, the edited one, you can see a long trail here. And even with the original one, you can see it because it just came by the plane. Here. And also around, I don't know what the colors are, you know. The original one. Then what we have here. Okay. 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 Here you can see it better. There was one which you cannot notice too much when you just see it with your eyes. You have to edit the picture, then you can see more. They're really putting everything here very wide, you know. The edited one, whoom. And also this, what you can see here and here, are not clouds. They were from the other chemtrails. And the original one, you don't notice them too much here. Edited one, you can see this here, and the original one. Here, edited one, very big, also with these things which are not clouds, and the original one. Just the sky's getting more clear. This is, I don't understand why. Edited one, the original one, you know. Just go back again. You can see things here. You don't see it too much here. It's just getting more milky. This is all product of the plane who's passed by. Here.
Hans,
Yep.
maybe you can post those on your website. I can't see them for one, and I'm not sure how many people can actually see them.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it's probably easier that people can comment on them from that. I can only begin to guess what the pictures you're showing. I imagine they're similar to what a lot of other people have posted. I'd be happy to try and explain those to you, exactly what's happening in those pictures.
Exactly.
But yeah, maybe we should just save that for another time.
Yeah, I will send you in 1 minute the link of the whole album, so you can even watch it on pictures or download it if you want. Just I will press here.
Just doing that, Blue, I mean, John, can you give us your final words, please?
Yeah, sure. I had kind of a little bit of a speech all set up, but I covered most of it, what I was going to say. I just hope people have a better understanding for what they're really seeing now. There are good fights to have. I think there's really good causes. It saddens me a bit when people waste energy on things that in my mind are completely false. There are good places to devote energy to. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. Please feel free to post them. I'll do my best to answer all of them. I would love to see this community come together with a real consensus on the type of planes, who's organizing it, where are they hiding these planes, or if they're airliners, which airlines. Is it in the fuel? Is it being dispersed other how? I'd love to see kind of like a real consensus on what people believe, who's doing it, why they're doing it, what's the reason, because I hear so many different words. The other thing too, I'd love to see the community condemn the charlatans that are out there trying to make a dollar off the people that don't know better. Ones that are selling argonite cloudbusters, or selling oils, selling potions and detox chemicals and stuff like that. These people have to be exposed for the charlatans trying to make money off people that aren't educated. And I guess I'll just leave it at that, if that's okay. And I look forward to next time.
Okay,
okay, well, thank you very much. We'll send you our agenda. I think Kim made a great suggestion. Maybe she should write an outline and send it to us so we can all agree, because I think we need to have more consensus among ourselves so we can hopefully have consensus with the pilots. So thank you, Kim, for your recommendation, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Hans, for hosting this wonderful opportunity.
No, thank you all also. I mean, this is, we have to continue with this, because if you don't do anything, nothing will happen, or less will happen, at least, you know.
Thank you very much, Hans, for letting me on here and doing a great job.
Thank you.
Tremendous job. And let me also say, Sylvain, you're a real trooper, Sylvain. I follow you a lot. Boy, you're a forerunner in this sort of thing, and it's great to have somebody. There's got to be somebody that's pushing this and carrying us along and pushing us, because, well, we fall asleep. Daily life gets in the way, and you just kind of like, oh, well, so what? So what if there are chemtrails? Who cares, right? I got to go to work. I can't be worried about it, type of thing. And you keep me awake, and you keep me looking. And I know, I mean, we all know it's there. Something's going on. We all know that. We're in agreement on that, I think. I'm looking out right now. I got a blue sky, not a chemtrail to be seen. Sun shining, no clouds. So, you know, on days like this, you forget. And then all of a sudden you go outside and you look, and it's like, what in the world? You know, it looks like, it reminds me of a biblical quote, sackcloth of hair. When the sky turns to sackcloth of hair. And that's kind of what it looks like to me sometimes, is sackcloth of hair. It looks like wool. But anyway, thank you guys for doing all this.
Okay.
And have a nice evening, everybody. I got to run.
Okay, so Mr. Pilot, thank you for your input today. Sylvain, thanks for making that chat here possible, that broadcast.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sylvain.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen so many pictures. I've taken so many. I've taken my own time lapse. I'm looking at your pictures now. The bottom line for me is that there are sensitive people on the ground. Yeah, good pictures, Hans. Wonderful pictures. Looks like Mexico City there. Thank you so much. But the bottom line for me is that I can smell and taste chemtrails. I know a lot of people who can online. This is consistent with what we know about more sensitive people. John, I mean, no disrespect to John. I appreciate him coming on here. I did point out when I was talking that he did use disinformation techniques when he was speaking. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful in saying that, but he did talk about that there's a danger of people shooting down planes. And this is actually
observant. That's what it is, Russ.
Well, this is the idea of shooting down planes, that there's a danger of spreading this information because people may shoot down planes, is actually a new technique that has been introduced in the last few weeks by mainstream media. There was an article where they're trying to say, oh, we need to stop all these chemtrails because people may shoot down planes. And he actually brought this up. He also mentioned about people who charlatans trying to sell remedies. Well, first of all, I publish scientific information about remedies because it's science, and these remedies really work. People need these remedies because the pharmaceuticals don't do anything, and they cost their arm and a leg, and the doctors don't even recognize that this is happening. So while I had a heart attack,
didn't it,
They,
Russ?
when I had a heart attack
Because
last year,
let's just scare
the doctors didn't even recognize that. They don't even really know what was wrong. All they know is my potassium is low, and what I know is that barium lowers potassium. So everything in this makes sense to me. There are no mysteries. There isn't anything that is hard to discern. We see, we smell, we taste, we feel the results of it. We've seen the patents. We've seen the websites. We've seen David Keith talk about they're going to do this. We know that disinformation techniques claim that they're going to do something after they actually start. So to me, the world makes sense, and it's very clear what's going on. What's that?
Another thing, we didn't get into HARP either, and I swear that this could easily have something to do with HARP and the need for nanoparticles in the atmosphere in order for HARP to interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of correlation, because you have to ionize, you have to have these particles, and it increases the propagation of the electromagnetic waves. So those particles make HARP the effective power delivery to its target much higher. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, well, it's another rabbit hole. I mean, that's the thing about this is there's so many rabbit holes. You look at one possibility, you look at another possibility, and pretty soon it's like, wow, what's going on? I mean, are they all possible? Maybe everybody's throwing crap around for their own purposes, right?
Well, I think absolutely, and I think what's going on here is that our government has had secret programs developing super exotic technologies for decades, for the last century.
Well, it's a military multiplier. We know that they used it in Vietnam and Korea. They use it all the time as a force multiplier in war.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, the statement that was made by was it the Air Force, or I don't know who, I can't remember who released the document, but it's owning the weather by 2025 using as a force multiplier. And let me ask everyone out there, why would the military publish their intentions for developing super powerful secret technologies? Wake up, people. This is disinformation. The reason they state that they're going to have these technologies in the future is to convince the public that they don't have them now. And why do they want to convince the public they don't have them now? Because they don't want to get blamed. They don't want the public to think that all of this very strange, very exotic weather going on has anything to do with them. They're trying to keep the blame off of them.
And there's another possibility that I've stumbled on, and it's how much, like, spy satellites, when they fly over, they spy, right? That's what they do. And they used to go out on the runways, airport runways, and paint silhouettes and stuff on the runways to fool the satellites. They used to do all kinds of crazy stuff to fool the spy satellites. Why wouldn't it seem reasonable that they're trying to hide? So they're using, I mean, spy satellites won't be able to see if it's cloudy.
Well, exactly. Kim, you've been awful quiet. I can see you jumping around. Why don't you talk a little bit? I know you're just bubbling over.
Oh, you read me well, Russ. I'm curious if your opinion is that this is more of a program that's being run by our government, or if this is a UN, more of a UN type program.
Well, I think there could be numerous. I think there could be numerous different programs. That's just it. Like who was referring to cloud seeding. You've got your insurance companies are seeding for cloud. Monsanto has got their own agenda. Everybody's got their own agenda. Even the military's got their own agenda as a force multiplier. So,
well, wouldn't these people have to have special clearance? I mean, I look at it like this. If Al Qaeda was,
it seems to me like
wait.
with the weather can just do so.
Yeah, go ahead.
If
Carol, what were you saying?
If Al Qaeda was up in the air in a Cessna flying around, we'd take them down. So if we can see this is happening on the ground, our government obviously knows it's happening in the air. Why isn't anything being done to stop it? In other words, in my mind, I think that it has to be our military in collusion with Monsanto, in collusion with Black Ops, in collusion overall with the UN. And I see this shift happening where for the past 40 years, they've denied this program even exists. And now all of a sudden, if you go to YouTube and you search the term reporter does cloud seeding interview, we see mainstream media starting to open up and discuss some of this. I don't know if it's trying to chill the chatter that everybody's screaming about what they're doing to our skies, or if they're desensitizing us for information or secrets that they can't keep quiet anymore in the future. But when it comes to people like John the pilot, I want to have good solid facts, like the 111th Congressional Report on Geoengineering or Climate. The Texas Weather Modification Association. I don't see how he can dispute. What I saw him doing was going down the same path as these lamestream media reporters have gone. Oh, we're cloud seeding. We need to make rain. But what I notice in my community, and because I'm so close to Mount Shasta, that when a big event happens or there's a huge storm coming in the Gulf, our planes in this region disappear for days on end. And when they come back and they start spraying again within 3 days, everybody's running, well, not everybody, a high percentage of people are running to their doctors with flu-like symptoms, getting treated with medication. So it seems to me that there's even some advantage in the pharmaceutical industry to be involved in this. But I get really frustrated with, I was biting my own tongue while John the pilot was talking, because like Russ, I could see that he was trying to convince everybody that Russ was just full of shit, that he was contradicting himself, that he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I mean, he seemed on a real campaign to attack Russ's information, and I want to know how to shut that down in the future. I don't know how to do it other than discussing the information through written chats and then going live in a conversation like this again and really having our gun, our bullets ready, or whatever you want to call it, having our ducks in a row and getting ready to battle it out. But it seems like knowing each agency's actual part in this and finding that proof seems to be a key piece of this puzzle, and I want to know how to get to it.
Well, I'd like to address the two questions you asked. Is one of them was, are the countries working together? Is this the UN? Who is doing this? In order to understand how something works, you have to understand its structure. This is an old famous saying that came from from biological science years ago. You have to understand its structure, and when you one thing that we have to understand here is that if you learn about the CAFRs, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports, you can learn about CAFRs by watching the movie. Go on YouTube and watch Corporation Nation.
Okay.
You can also look up Walter Burian, who's a Canadian. I believe he's Canadian. He's doing a wonderful job at exposing the CAFRs. Now, let me tell you what the CAFRs tell us. The CAFRs tell us that the United States government has controlling interest in virtually all Fortune 500 companies. Did the world just hear what I said? This should shock people, and this is documented. This is actually documented in their own comprehensive annual financial reports. The U.S. government owns controlling interest in virtually all Fortune 500 companies, virtually all international companies. So you have a structure that looks like a pyramid. You have the U.S. government that controls virtually all large corporations, at least American corporations and many, if not most, international corporations. And this is not me saying this. Before people attack me or say, you don't know what you're talking about, this sounds crazy, I agree with you. It sounds crazy. But you know what? It's documented. Look up Walter Berrien and look up Corporation Nation. It's a 3-hour video, so it's a long watch, but he shows you out of the comprehensive annual financial report, out of the CAFR, he shows you that this is true. Now, once you understand the structure, it becomes easy to understand how this stuff works. Let me summarize this. All the governments of the world have 2 flags. They have a flag of their country flag. But ask yourself, why does every country on planet Earth have both of these flags? They have a plain flag that's always flying outside, and then they have a yellow fringe flag that's in the DMV, that's in the tax building, that's next to the judge in the courtrooms. What I'm saying by saying this is that yellow fringe is part of a financial control system. It's a different country. When you walk past that little fake wall in a courtroom that separates the area where the people sit and where the attorneys and the witnesses are, you're entering a different country. That's why if you go in and you try to declare your constitutional rights, they'll say overruled or those don't exist. We have done it. And the judge just said overruled, next argument, overruled, next argument, and shot down. How could he overrule the Constitution if it's the highest court, highest law in the land? Because it's a different land. When you walk past that little fake wall, it's a different land. What I'm trying to tell you is that all the governments of the world are already controlled by one central financial body. Those who control the International Monetary Fund are the people who profit from the yellow fringe flag, from the corporate control of government, and from the huge pyramid that is the United States. And I love this country. I care about people. I'm not anti-government. I'm just anti-corruption. So I'm not preaching. I don't want anybody to say those things. All I want is integrity and truth. Because when you have integrity and truth, everything works together beautifully. But when you have lies and deception, which we're swimming in a sea of lies and deception today, everything goes haywire, people suffer, people die, but that's what's happening today. So who is doing this? I believe firmly, without any question, that it is the same people who control the Federal Reserve Bank of all the major countries of the world, who instituted the separate countries of the yellow fringe flags. Did you never notice that every flag of the world has the same aspect ratio? Isn't that a little weird? Has anybody ever thought about that before? No. Most people don't think about it. But how was it a coincidence when a country can make any flag they want, but they're all the same aspect ratio, and they all have 2 flags? So who is doing this? It is the people at the very top of the heap who have absolute control of our military and the military of all of these countries, because they control, that's right, Hans, that's right, at the top of the pyramid. You said it. They're the ones who are doing this, which is why it's happening around the world. And then I was going to address your other question, but I actually forgot what it was. Oh, it's about how to confront this.
Yeah.
Okay, you're asking about how to confront the arguments. I think that we have to follow a model that works. And there's a couple things we can do, but here's the primary thing. You'll notice that the FDA, for the first time, is beginning to speak out against amalgam fillings. Those are the dental fillings that contain mercury. And for decades, people like Hal Huggins and other have come out against them, saying they're causing disease and health issues. And the government, the ADA, the American Dental Association of Chicago actually held the patent on the manufacture of amalgam fillings. The patent has since run out, but according to Dr. Hal Huggins, they were making about $50 million a year on the manufacture of those from their patent holdings. That's a conflict of interest. That is the reality of it. Follow the money. But what's happened is the FDA has done something astonishing this last year. They came out against amalgam fillings, whereas they have refused to regulate them for decades. Now, if you understand that the FDA is wholly controlled by the pharmaceutical industry, it is. If you understand that, this makes perfect sense, because most of the diseases we have today can be traced back to mercury. I am not making this up. This is scientifically based information. I'm not a doctor. I do not treat, prescribe, diagnose, or cure conditions, symptoms, or diseases. I'm simply stating what I have read in scientific studies, clinical studies, peer-reviewed studies, and elsewhere. And when you put the pieces together, most of the diseases we have today, even eyesight problems, because mercury can change the pressure in your eye, make you short-sighted, long-sighted. It can change your thyroid. It prevents the production of T3, of TSH, which is thyroid signaling hormone. It blocks the utilization of iodine, so your thyroid gets completely smothered. It causes cancer. I could go on and on. But when you understand that this is how it works, the FDA has finally come out against amalgam fillings. Okay, so to answer your question, how did this happen? Here's how it happened. Public awareness. Public became so aware that this was a lie that the only way that they could save their credibility was to tell the truth. And that's what we have to do with chemtrails, is we have to get enough of the public aware and angry about this. Not because I want people to be angry, and I certainly don't want people to shoot planes down. Pilots in those planes should have their day in court, but they should not be shot down. I would never advocate violence like that. We need to do this lawfully, I believe. I think that, so I don't want anybody accusing me of that ever, but we need to have so much public awareness about this that the government finally has to back down and say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't know. Of course, that's their excuse all the time, we didn't know. Mm-hmm. But like amalgam fillings, and I'm sorry I'm so wordy about this, but I'm hot under the collar. But like amalgam fillings, I was damaged by amalgam fillings. My childhood was ruined by amalgam fillings. And what they said is they said, oh, we're sorry, we don't know. We didn't know that that it causes problems. Anybody with 1/3 of a brain can go online and search and find medical studies that are 20, 30, 40 years old, that show that that mercury causes these diseases and that mercury comes off amalgam fillings. So do you think that there's any excuse for scientists and medical professionals who set policy for the largest country in the world? Is there any excuse for them to be ignorant of this when anybody can go online and find this information? No. Saying they didn't know is a lie. It's impossible that they didn't know this information. It is a cover-up. They are paid off to support the use of mercury, to spread the use of mercury, because it profits the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm sorry I was so wordy, but we need to get the public involved and knowledgeable about this, and I want to encourage people that it's not that hard to do. When you tell us people about this in the public, in my experience, about 10 to 20% will agree with you almost right off the bat. The rest of them will have different responses. But can you imagine if we had 5% of the U.S. population that believed in this? That's a lot of people. So that, I believe, is how we do it.
Well, my personal experience has been, and it's a lonely road we walk when we're willing to openly discuss these issues. With the finger pointing, they're crazy, they're conspiracy theorists, and then what I'm noticing now is that people that I was discussing this with a few years ago, when I run into them now, they'll say, hey, somebody was talking about chemtrails and I instantly thought of you. And, so I see the awakening happening. Like 14 years ago, if you said chemtrails, people said what? And so now when you say chemtrails, they go, oh, you mean the white lines in the sky? I do notice a huge shift occurring. I guess I'm impatient. I want the answers now. On the other hand, I've had these times where I've sat there and thought this through completely and thought, okay, so we the people gain control and we say you can't fly over our skies with that shit no more. If we don't blindly participate in this bullshit that they have set up, they're gonna drop a nuke on us. you know, if you break away from the system effectively enough, they're not just going to give away the U.S. their pot of gold or any other big major companies or countries. They're going to annihilate the people in them and just start over. No skin off their backs. So trying to find a balance in between this, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that this is what's happening in Israel today, is that this conflict, they control all the countries of the world. And I know this is hard for people to believe, but I want to encourage people to go to orbisvitae.com and watch all of William Cooper's videos. They're all there. Orbis Vitae, O-R-B like boy, I-S, Orbis Vitae, V-I-T-A-E, means life, so circle of life, orbisvitae.com. And down on the homepage is a link to William Cooper. He has 42 audio clips down there of his programs that will document how these people have risen to the top of every country in the world, and they control the world already. They spent the 20th century doing this, and they already do it now. Now they're implementing their plans. I think what you said is absolutely correct about they're just annihilate people because it's no skin off their back. And that's what I think is going on in Israel right now, is because there is a massive awakening. And I've noticed the same thing you have. There's been a surge in our newsletter. There's been a surge in people joining our groups and forums. It's picking up. We're rounding that exponential curve of awareness, and it's really starting to pick up. And they know this. In fact, that I believe is the reason for all of the monitoring programs, all of the Patriot Act phone tapping, wireless phone tapping. It's not about controlling terrorism, because we know that these things are mostly false flags, if not completely false flags. It's because of this. If you're creating a deception, what is the best way to make sure you never lose control of that deception, of the people you're deceiving? You have to be able to be a fly on the wall and hear what their private conversations are. Because if you can track their beliefs, you can see that, oh, that news story that we ran, people aren't really buying it. So we need to backtrack a little bit, and we'll run a little bit of a softer story and gradually move them into. That's what the surveillance program is all about. But getting back to Israel, I agree with you that when they start seeing us all move forward and become awake, what people have to really realize is that the people who are running these programs are fighting for their lives. In other words, they know that if they're caught out, they're going to go to court, and they're going to end up executed because they're committing crimes that are larger than anything that has ever been seen on the face of this planet. So they will not hesitate to push the button if that's what it takes for them to avoid going to prison, because they know what that will mean for them. That's why, part of the reason why this fight is so hard, because they're fighting for their lives. And so I understand your concerns, and unfortunately it's a tough corner, because I think that they are going to escalate the war in Israel to distract people, to scare people, and to clamp down the laws further, and then try to shut up websites like mine by this new claim we're seeing in mainstream media that says, hey, people spreading these conspiracy theories are going to cause others to shoot down planes. So they're going to say, we got to remove all of these websites. So that's one of the ways that they're going to try to shut us up, and it's going to be through fear, through war, through coercion and disinformation. So we just have to, I believe, work as quickly and as hard as we can, because there is an awakening, and even if we do encounter trouble, which I believe there will be a lot of resistance and a lot of trouble, we still can make headway and still make progress. I do believe we're going to have some really hard times ahead, but we're also going to have some real victories intertwined with that trouble.
Well, one of the things that's going to be moving through the Senate over the next week and into the next 30 days is discussions of NDAA. And it's vital right now. Sometimes we kind of have to pick our battles, and like at times I have to step away from the BP, the BP battle, activism for BP, or watching the Louisiana sinkhole, and I have to step away from these things sometimes to help push information. And so if hanging on to the internet, because it seems like the internet is what has helped so many people become aware, because They don't have to go to the library and look for the limited amount of material that is available to them. There's a plethora of information available through the internet. So it seems like we need to focus a lot of energy on sharing information about leaning on our senators, about individually contacting letter writing campaigns to our representatives and screaming about how much we don't support, what is this new internet coming through Obama, something about UJust, or it's a whole nother internet system where they would funnel everybody in our country into this one new type of internet where we won't be able to see everything on the www. That is the worst thing that could happen to us, is for us to lose our ability to connect with each other and share information in the manner that we do.
It's already happening, Kim. It's already happened. That's one of the reasons that our internets are so slow now, is because all our information is going through some CIA bloody computer before we get it.
How can they chase so many fish at once? There's millions of us.
I'll tell you exactly how they do it. And this is from their own literature. If you go listen to William Cooper on orbisvitae.com, he explains it from their own literature. They actually have recruiting systems where they get people who have like-minded belief systems, and they recruit those people to work for them. And one of the recruiting systems is Masonry.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say that Masonry is not the only thing, and I'm not saying original Masonry was bad. It actually began as a very benign, beneficial organization. Mm-hmm. But if you listen to Cooper, he actually documents where in the writings of Adam Weishaupt, where they actually conspired to slowly take over the Masonic lodges along with many other fraternities for their purposes of bringing about a new world order. Yes, that was in the late 1700s when he was writing about this, but the conspiracy is that old.
It happened to all our major religions as well. All the church religions were taken over as well.
Yeah, there's been a tremendous amount of taking over. But like with Masonry, just so people don't misunderstand, I actually know Masons. I know a 32nd degree Mason. I'm not really close friends with him, but I've had conversations with him, and he's like, this is all garbage. I don't know why people are talking about, all Masons are bad. And that's not the way it works. If you listen to the people who have been on the inside and come out and whistle-blown about this, they will tell you that it's a recruiting fraternity. And what happens is you can be a 33rd degree Mason and not know about the conspiracies. You will be tied in with local business. You'll get benefits. If you're ever arrested, you can give a secret hand sign and get preferential treatment from the judge. And that's a conspiracy. In fact, a lot of people don't realize that in your first oath you give as a Mason to come to the rescue of your brother, okay? They are giving themselves an oath to conspire. This is not me saying this. This is from their own documentation.
No, I believe you. I have firsthand experience and knowledge in this. I actually have a foster son who's been brought in to the Masons. So what you're saying is accurate, 100%. As a matter of fact, like a lot of people don't even realize that the levels that go up after number 35. 35 isn't shit in this system.
Right, and the thing is that your normal Masons don't know the scope of it. If they become a 32nd or 33rd degree, and the leadership sees that they have the right type of immorality, they have the right type of worldview, then they will approach you. And this happened not in the context of Masonry, but this kind of recruitment, this type of recruitment happened with Aaron Russo. Aaron Russo was a Hollywood producer. He produced Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. He produced The Rose with Bette Midler. Trading Places was that movie where the two rich stock traders bet $1 if they could convert this guy off the street, whether he could become like them. It's kind of like I
love the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like a play on the concept that the rain in Spain comes mainly from the plain. It's can you take that kind of a person and convert them? But anyway, he produced that movie. He also produced Bette Midler's movie The Rose. He also was the manager for Bette Midler. He had owned some nightclubs or a nightclub in Chicago, and he ran for, I believe, governor. and he got a considerable part of the population where it looks like he might win the next time around. And so he was approached by one of the Rockefellers. And if you go to Orbis Vitae and you enter the forum area and then go under the Fed and IRS forum, just go into the forum and search for the Fed, go into that forum, and it has Aaron Russo being interviewed. Aaron Russo died of cancer a few years ago, but it has him talking to Alex Jones, and he actually talks about how the Rockefellers approached him and said, "Why do you care about these guys?" And even made allusions to upcoming 9/11 and said, "There's going to be an event, and from this big event, we are going to chip everybody. And the reason we're chipping everybody," and this is all said, this is right out in the open, "we're going to chip everybody, and the reason we're chipping everybody is because if they don't fall in line with our system, we'll shut their chip off, and you can't buy or sell. You can't conduct commerce. We'll cut you off from the system." And we already see that beginning today with these internet bills and these scares about, oh, we don't want these scary internet sites that talk about conspiracies because they might induce people to do bad things. So they're trying to divide and conquer. They're always trying to divide people, because what I've learned is when you get people together, good things begin to happen. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to how I think they're doing it, and that they are going to not hesitate to push the button if they're backed into a corner.
So do you think that Alex Jones, do you think he's COINTELPRO or disinformation?
Well, let me just preface that with this, because I know Alex Jones provides a tremendous amount of very good information to the public. And what the public needs to realize about how disinformation works is disinformation is extremely sophisticated. And if you understand how it works, you can start recognizing it when you see it. So let me tell you let me tell you one example of how it works. Is that when they foresee a problem coming, they see the public starting to learn about chemtrails, or what they do is they preemptively send out a bunch of people who are supposed experts and start disseminating disinformation, and sometimes even conspiracies, to say, oh, it's actually this. They're trying to save us from Planet X, or that's actually aliens are doing, or the planes are disappearing planes, or this, that, and the other thing. And they will send all these people out to spread fringe information, to disseminate and to disinform people, to divide people up, to confuse people. And people get so confused and overwhelmed, they just say, oh, forget it, I can't deal with this stuff anymore. And this is not me saying this. If you read some of their old documentation, they actually say that these are the methods that they will use. Now, as far as Alex Jones goes, he's like so many others, well, I won't name names, but he does. Yeah, I'm going to dig myself a hole here. But I mean, people need to wake up and realize the depth and scope. If you see people waking up to conspiracies, the way you counter that is you put your ultimate man who exposes conspiracies out there, because it's layered like an onion. You have people at the core of the onion who believe the all-American dream. You have people at the next layer who believe, well, there's corruption for money, but you know, it's the way the world works, and like the movies you see, there's a few bad guys, but they're always routed out by the good people. Then the next layer, then you say, well, there's big conspiracies, but you know, they're running the world, and it's pretty much like it seems, and yeah, they spread lies and stuff, but it'll be okay. Then there's the next layer saying, well, there's actually a global conspiracy, and there really is a new world order, and these people are working together, but they're ultimately fighting for the survival of people. Even though they're trying to depopulate, they still, they still are trying to keep the Earth alive and protect us from the ozone hole. And then there's the next layer. So in explaining this scenario, there's a lie at every layer. And what they have to do in their disinformation campaigns is they have to support and continue to propagate lies at each layer. So what you're doing is you're capturing people. As you move out and out and out in the layers of the onions, your knowledge is expanding. You're understanding the bigger picture better and better. And what they do is try to capture you at each level and say, no, no, this is really it. This is really it. Because years ago, I even thought the world was like the core. And then I was opened up and said, no, it's really like this. And I was like, no, it's really like this. No, it's big. This is really, really big. And I'm very persistent researcher. And I kept uncovering and putting pieces together until I realized this thing is global. It is absolutely global. It's spiritual and religious in nature, and I'm not pointing to any particular religion. I'm just saying that the elites, well, let me point to a particular religion. The elites have a religion called the mystery schools, and this is all exposed by William Cooper on Orbis Vitae. They call it the mysteries, and some of their writers are Manly P. Hall. I've had Facebook friends get a little upset with me, just a few, because I would give them links to William Cooper saying, you really need to understand who Manly P. Hall is. He's one of the elites. He's one of those who are doing what Helena Petrovna-Blavatsky told them to do in the formation of the New World Order, is to expose the hierarchy. In other words, expose our religion to the world, which you can see happening right now if you watch Saturday morning cartoons. All of the lies that they were talking about propagating 20 and 30 years ago that have been exposed by I'm losing her name right now, but they have been exposed. They're teaching your children. The NASA cloud charts are teaching them to accept chemtrails as normal. Saturday morning cartoons are teaching children that there might be a threat of an asteroid, so we need to spend a whole bunch of money in the industrial complex for anti-asteroid weapons. Oh, and it goes on and on. But these things are not new, and they're not happening by chance. These things are written into movies. If you watch Castle, if you watch Covert Affairs, if you watch any number of these shows that are on television, almost all of them are filled with propaganda. I watched an episode of Bones a couple weeks ago, and it was just saturated with 9/11 propaganda, and they use several disinformation techniques. And this is not paranoia. This is the elites said they would do this, and they're doing exactly what they said they would do. And people will say, well, how do they control so many people? Because it's a pyramid. When you understand the structure of the thing, when you understand that it's a pyramid, and the person at the top, okay, this small cabal, this small group of people own all these corporations. They own the United States of America, a corporate entity, which owns the court system, the military-industrial complex, the police departments, and all of the municipalities, all of the villages, all of the cities, which are municipal corporations. It's a pyramid. So if you want to control this, and you have a pyramid structure set up, and you own controlling stock in a corporation, it's a piece of cake to control it. You simply put the person in power who will do whatever you tell him to do. That's why corporations are so valuable to them. So I know I'm going on and on and on and going everywhere, but this is a huge conspiracy. It's an enormous global cover-up. This information has been exposed even in some ancient literature that this was going to happen. This was written about in the elites, so-called elites' own literature decades ago, even centuries ago. It is a conspiracy that has been going on. It's a transgenerational conspiracy that has been handed down from one rich family to the offspring of their family so that the control always stayed in the family. So that's how they control so many people, because they have controlling interest in all of these corporations, all of Hollywood, and if they don't like one of the CEOs, have you ever seen these mass exoduses where a bunch of people retire, or a bunch of military people retire in groups? That's a replacement. Somebody's starting to buck the system. They're starting to have a crisis of conscience. They're removed. And if they say they resigned, you don't really know. They may have been threatened. What you watch on news, you have no idea what's true and what isn't true. So
this just happened. This same exact thing you're talking about just happened to my foster son. He served 8 years in the Navy. His status is RE1 for enlistment. He had stellar reviews. He was written up in newspapers and articles. He built robots for the military. They've even taken over some of the programs that he wrote that he shared with him and said, you know, look, you can do this, you can do this. They ended up taking it from him, and a couple months later, he saw his same design written up in a science magazine. So at one point he had been here, and I went dashing outside. There they go with the chemtrails, and I grabbed my camera and I'm making my video, and he comes running outside, and he looked up at the sky and he's like, you're right. He went back to the base, China Lake, and went to his captain. They had a good rapport with each other, and said, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the skies. And his captain wasn't willing to say that he was wrong. He was just willing to say, we can't have this conversation. And Justin was offered a job to go to work for Richard Branson's Galactica, some kind of big company owned by Richard Branson. And Justin had applied and interviewed and was, you know, as soon as he was departed from the Navy, was to go into this job. And then somebody within the Navy came to him and said, no, we want you to go to work for General Dynamics, I think. It's a weapons producer for our military. And he said, no, thank you, I'm not interested. I'm going to work for Richard Branson. The next thing you knew, Richard Branson's company contacted Justin and said, your job offer has been withdrawn. And Justin and his captain were both released from the Navy. And when we would talk to him to discuss with him what happened in his departure, because of course I'm not privileged to open his file and look at it, he said that anybody who was not willing to follow unconstitutional orders was being ejected from the Navy right now. And when I look at an RE1 enlistment status with stellar reviews that you couldn't get any higher remarks on your reviews, and he's being booted out at the same time they're recruiting new soldiers, I have to agree that you know, he's been outed because he wasn't willing to follow unconstitutional orders. On the other hand, him joining the Mason was kind of scary for me too. But I kind of see where he's coming from. If you can't beat him, join him, get on the inside. So what's a foster mom to do?
Yeah, I think education is really the key. If you can get him to listen to William Cooper, 42 radio programs, it takes a while. The way I did is I listened to a few every weekend, you know, and just chipped away. And then I've listened to it over and over again because there's so much information. But he exposes it right from their own literature, and it helps you to grasp the outer layer of the onion. William Cooper is one of the very few people that is all the way out on the outer layer. You asked about Alex Jones. I believe Alex Jones is not on the outer layer. He's a layer in. He's not exposing everything. Cooper exposed virtually everything. There's a couple things he could have done, maybe you didn't know about, but he did the best job of anybody I know. So I see what you're saying, and it's great to have that testimonial. I know that the military can take your patents. They can just take them. I mean, it's written in the U.S. code, and it's very unfair and very unfortunate. But they do that all the time, and they have a history of doing it. And if people really want to understand how the military-industrial complex is governed, let me direct you to a series of videos which are just absolutely amazing. Every American should listen to this, just like Cooper. There's a military wife from a high-level person in the military who got divorced, and she has spilled the beans on everything she knows. And boy, does she know a lot. Go to the Orbis Vitae website, O-R-B-I-S, Orbis, like orbit, Orbis Vitae, V-I-T-A-E, like life, orbisvitae.com. Go into the forum, and then find the forum that's under the Geopolitical Research Forum, so it's kind of buried, but you could just do a page search for military-industrial complex, and it'll come up. You'll see a video by Kay Griggs. It's K-A-Y-G-R-I-G-G-S. And this woman has about a 4-hour raw video interview, which the videos haven't even been edited, but she just talks about the way things really run. And
yeah, I've seen her talk. I've actually, she was the person who enlightened me about how the selection is done through the Beta and the Kappa, the fraternity systems. I mean, she really, you're right. The woman breaks it down, and there is no denying. She couldn't have imagined all that and put it together the way she did. I thoroughly believe her.
Yeah, and she names names. She names places. I mean, she nails it down. In the interview, maybe a little slow in the beginning, but it just gains steam and gains steam, gains steam. Starts talking about JFK assassination and stuff she knew that her husband knew, and all kinds of stuff. And also one other thing I wanted to mention to people about censorship, kind of backtracking a little bit, but several months ago, our globalskywatch.com and orbisvitae.com websites started receiving partial censorship on Facebook. And this is the way that they did it. Normally, when you are making a post or a response to someone, and you put a link in that response in Facebook, it actually comes up with what they call a link preview, which is a little tiny picture and then a little title with that is clickable. Several months ago, Orbis Vitae and Global Skywatch, within 1 week of each other, whenever you reply to a post and you put a link to the forum on either one of those websites, not the website itself, but to the forum, which was working perfectly, providing those link previews for many months, suddenly, in one day, no more link previews. Now,
have you found the way around that? Do you know what the answer to that is?
There's no way to fully recover from that. You
can't fully, but you can get around it by using link shortening, URL shortening sites like tinyURL. What you do is you assign a new URL to your link, and then you post that, the one that tinyURL will provide you, or whatever site you want to use. But once you change the link and break your letters off of that, it'll allow the preview, the picture preview. I know exactly what you're talking about. I call it the blue link.
Actually, thank you for that information. Unfortunately, I'm a web programmer. I have tried that, and it doesn't work with either of our forums. They still censor the links. And now it's gotten so bad that when you put that link in a post, well, it's without going into all the details, all you see is just, you get a little link in the body of the post, but there's no preview whatsoever. And of course, the reason, just to explain to the people listening, we still have a pretty good audience listening, why do they do this is because it minimizes and marginalizes your exposure. When people see that little picture and they see that extra link, they're a little more compelled to click on it. But when you just have a little blue link buried in the body of black text, most people don't actually notice that unless you're really looking carefully through the text. So what happens is you lose the number of click-throughs you get. So this is another active censorship that's going on against both of our websites by Facebook. Yeah. And while we have a little quiet moment, I just want to thank Hans for your tireless work, your editing, for your willingness to sit in front of a computer and listen to people speak and get this information out there. We need people like Hans. Thank you for all your work.
No, thank you. Hey.
Let's have a round of applause.
No. You're so great. I love you all. I mean, it's an honor for me, you know. I mean, when I started Project Lights Out the year 2007, I mean, I just thought about environmental stuff, you know, like global warming. I even fell in that trap, you know. But then also researching, you know, making a Facebook account and researching about all that stuff like chemtrails and whatever. Then I mean, I became awakened, you know. Yeah, no sheeple no more, you know. So then little by little I found all the people like you, like Roxy Lopez, like Anthony Hilder and whatever, you know. I mean, And the great thing is that you all accepted also my friend requests, or I had to accept of them. Now I would even accept everybody else, but I'm over 5,000, you know, the friend limits on Facebook. But we can continue anyway. A little surprise, I will have in some days ready my professional webpage. In the past I had one, but it was also censored. Even my first YouTube channel with 400 videos, it was yeah, gone, you know. I lost a lot of work there, but the new web page is almost ready, and I will give place every one of you, everyone who wants to be mentioned on that web page. Just send me a link, or the link of your company or your I don't know, movement, whatever. And what I want to do is, I don't want to be famous at all. I mean, I just want to open the door to that everyone can come to us, you know, that we can share not only friendship, also our knowledge. Because if we are continuing fighting for ourselves, like I did it in the past when I founded Project Lights Out, I just thought it's me alone, you know. But now that I know that there are more people outside with the same goals, you know, we have all the same enemy, so we have to come together. And I just want to connecting the dots, you know, to that all the people are joining us, making a big group or whatever, and instead to spread our power or to divide what we are doing, come together, unite, and do it everything yeah, together, you know, because we are all one, and it's time that we beat the beast, you know. So thank you also so very much. The kiss for the ladies and a big hug for the guys here. And yeah, let's continue with everything. I mean, this is my maybe my sense of life, you know, because I don't like to be a worker in a little office and dying later, you know.
You're definitely not alone. You're definitely not alone, Hans. I brought the Gamily here, a rather large group. We kind of come together under, I'm sure you've heard of Dutch Synths.
Yes.
We came together under Dutch Synths a little bit, and yeah, we're a pretty active group, and we've got a tiny chat and whatnot, and it's cool.
Yeah.
So
yes,
thank you from the Gamily.
Yes, and another announcement what I want to do here on 12th of December, I will do a 24-hour live stream. I mean, I did that the first time when I made my very first live stream on 11/11. You know, I mean, I have. Okay, I will explain what is Project Lights Out, because many people, they say why he calls Project Lights Out. What happened with the lights out of and stuff like this. Okay, it's not like the Earth Hour. They make 1 hour switching off the lights. I mean, that doesn't work, not even for stopping the global warming. What I want to do, or what is my idea for the Project Lights Out, is that people ask why, and this is exactly the moment that we can answer, you know. It's just like paying attention to the people, you know, that they or that the people pay attention of that what I'm doing. And then we can answer. You can answer Russ. You can answer. I don't know, Zeitgeist movement. All those movements which want do something better to the world. That we can come together and give the answers. You know, there's Nikola Tesla. He was a great how you say inventor of energy, free energy and whatever. So
advanced technologies for free energy delivery.
Exactly, and this is why Project Lights Out. In the past, when I started, it was just Lights Out 9999, because I wanted to make it the first big event on 9th of September 2009. Then it was 10/10/10, and then 11/11/11 when I started my first live stream, and now it will be 12/12/12. And why I'm picking that dates is because it's easy to remember. It's not a satanic number. When I made the 999, the people thought it's maybe like 666, the number of the beast, but it was even 4 nines. I mean, this is just to make it easier that the people remember the date when it will be, you know. I mean, when I put it like 27th of February or whatever, maybe they get confused. So that live stream will be on 12th of December for 24 hours, so that everyone of the planet, I mean, not just here in the America or Mexico, whatever, also the Europeans, that they have chance to call in or just to talk or just to chat, whatever. I mean, that we can come together and look for solutions. Maybe we can even use that date for planning something big, something peaceful, of course. I don't want to have a revolution where thousands of people are dying, you know. But okay, that will be the 12th of December, and I also hope to have my webpage ready before that. So also to go out a little bit of Facebook, because we know that this is controlled by the CIA or FBI, whatever. And yeah, everybody is invited to be part also of that webpage. It's not just mine. I mean, it's for everybody. We are all one, and yeah, this is what I can offer here. And I also will mention, I don't have any sponsors or receive donations. I do that because I love to do it. It's like a little dream come true to help at least some of you who really care of the planet and of their children or whatever. I mean, I do that for free. I don't receive any money here. There's no Coca-Cola who pay me something for that. So I'm not bought even from the government. I mean, I'm even kind of against the government, because they're not doing what we want, you know. They should do what we want, and it seems to be that they have to take care of us, but they are not working well. They should be fired. Okay, that's a little bit about me and my project. So thank you so much for being part of it. And yeah, anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
You say the CIA is watching? I think we should all stand up and moon them. Everybody moon your camera.
Go ahead, boys. Show me your stuff.
Or occupy CIA, you know. They want to occupy many places like Wall Street. Why not occupy CIA or whatever, or the Harp, you know? I mean, there are so many things which is even built because of our taxes, you know. So I mean, we have also right to stop bad things here. It's time to stop madness. Yeah.
Will you be recommending that people you run a different color lights or porch lights for a week before the operation or the project lights out?
Sorry, I didn't understand you. Again, please.
Somebody has their mic on and it's doing a feedback.
Ah, okay. When someone is not speaking, it's better to put it in silence. Now I will do it in silence. Okay.
Okay. A week prior to the project lights out date, which is 12/12/12, so it would be what, about the 4th or 5th. If people start running a different color light in their porch light, like a blue or a green light, and we all agree to do this, we all put this different color light in our outside lights. I've noticed that my neighbors will say, why did you put a green porch light, or why did you put a blue porch light? And that gave me the opportunity to talk with my neighbors. And when you say project lights out, well, a lot of people can have their lights out, and maybe it catches attention, or maybe it doesn't. But I'm wondering if that is something you're going to be doing, or you're going to be asking people to run a special color light bulb for this event.
Okay, let me explain. Because there were two things, or there's another thing similar like this. What also Sylvain Henry thought about it, to put the green lights. You know, this is something different. The green lights that was more meant for waking up the people to make peace. You know, that everybody puts green lights, and then it comes to the news that the people also ask why green lights, and then we want peace, world peace. This is very good. What I will do with the project lights out, with the lights out effect, is like everything is like 12/12/12/12. Just switching off all the lights, that everything is dark at that moment. Of course, not. I mean, restaurants won't do it, but personal people. Just imagine one street without lights. Then the neighbors will ask, what happened? Why did you switch out your light? And then the thing is running, you know, like a snowball effect. Then the neighbor who knows about what we are doing, then they can inform the other neighbor. No, it's because of this. We want peace. We want get rid of the chemtrails. We want this. What is a chemtrail? And then people get involved. It's like helping that the people ask why, you know. So just for 12 minutes, it's not too long. People can survive 12 minutes switching off the light. They can maybe put a candle meanwhile or whatever. And then also when that is getting more bigger, then maybe a reporter will ask also why the whole colony is without lights, and then maybe it can even go to the news. This is what would be the best, you know, that the radio stations or the TV stations ask also why, and then we can even go public with that. So it's just switching off the lights, not buying another light bulb for that event, not doing a big effort to go out to the street and the manifestations or whatever. You can be at home, just switching off the light. That doesn't cost you any energy. You even save maybe some cents with with your energy. And after that, yeah, you can turn on the lights again. It's not turning out off the whole electricity. It's just the lights, you know. You can have your computer on, you can have your radio on, whatever. Just maybe the news are coming at that moment to the radio station. Who knows, you know. And yeah, that is what I ask for. Just 12 minutes switching off the lights to call attention that people ask why, and then we can answer. This is the most important thing what I wanted. People ask, and then we can tell them, you know, because many of us, we know what is happening and we want to help, that the truth is coming out. And yeah, this is it.
I'm gonna have to go ahead and break away and leave the conversation. I have a drum circle that I have to be at this afternoon, and I've got some prep to do to get my drums ready to go. I really thank you, Hans. God bless you for everything that you've done to make this happen. And I look forward to us talking again. Our paths are going to cross.
Okay. No, thank you too. Have a great afternoon. And I mean, I have every one of you on Skype whenever you want, or you have some time, or when I make a new live stream. Everybody's invited. There's no censorship. I'm not like other broadcasters with a time limit. I mean, we can talk for hours. I do it with all my heart, so everybody's welcome, you know. Okay, so have a great day, you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kim. Nice
Thank
meeting
you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Russ, and thank you, Pocket Fuzz. And I look forward to connecting with you guys through Sylvain's Facebook page. I'll look for you there and make a post, and maybe you guys could add me.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
God bless.
Okay.
God bless, Kim.
Please also share the knowledge, be part of it, be part not just of Project Lights Out, be part of saving the world, saving ourselves and our future generations, because we will, I mean, I'm 47 now, becoming 48 in January, so my life is, I mean, if I die, I die, but I think of other people, of the young people, also of the old people, because they have worked all their lives and they have right to enjoy their last years in peace and healthy, you know.
Feel too. That's how I feel too, Hans. Is, I'm old, and I'm not here for myself. I'm here for the next generation. We're trying to fix this for the next generation,
Exactly.
not ourselves.
Exactly. This. Okay. This is it. You know, we have to think about others too, not be selfish. Just have a good job and a lot of money to travel. I mean, we have to think also about our neighbors, friends, wives, husbands, children, grandchildren, and of everybody, because we are all on the same place. It's just one planet, and we don't have another one to escape if this is getting poisoned with the time, whatever, you know. So we have to be together to share knowledge, to share the links, at least on Facebook. And yeah, and being part of a big change, because it's really time. Okay.
Hans, thank you for everything that you do. I have to run.
Okay.
But thank you for everything, Pocket Fuzz. Nice being on with you again, and I hope you guys have a great evening, and I look forward to next time.
Thank you so much, Russ. See you very, very soon. Have a great time, and thank you for everything you do here.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.
Good night.
Peace. Good night,
Yeah,
Russ.
see you, Russ.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all on the live stream channel, on the YouTube, when you watch me later. with all those great people here. And I love you all. Have a great day and great future, and take care of the world. Okay.